it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. Happy Ace Week. So, today I'm going to do a special episode. Get all your questions answered here. Get them in chat right now if you want to know about asexuality, if you want to know about the asexual spectrum, put the questions in chat. So, first of all, what is asexuality? So, asexuality, so A with the sexuality together, there's no space between the letter A and sexuality, is a sexual orientation that's based on the lack of sexual attraction. So, when A is in front of sexual or A is in front of sexuality and they're put together with no gap, it means absence of sexual attraction. So, asexuality is a sexual orientation. And if you belong to this sexual orientation, you're asexual. And there can be different types and is different types of asexuals. So the asexual spectrum is basically all the different types, categories, subcategories of asexual identities. And so asexuality is both a sexual orientation and it's a spectrum of asexual identities, ranging from those who are pure asexual, who don't experience any sexual attraction whatsoever, going to the grey asexuals that are more on the more sexual end of the asexual spectrum, that do experience sexual attraction, but only under limited, rare, or specific circumstances, or they experience it, but not enough to want to act on it. Does that make sense? So pure, no sexual attraction. Grey has some sexual attraction, but it's not the usual sexual attraction to warrant or be called and fit into the category of sexual attraction. So, yeah. So, under these terms, the grey asexuals and the pure asexuals, there are asexuals that are romantic and there are asexuals that are non-romantic. So an asexual that's non-romantic could be a pure asexual, they could be a grey asexual. A person who's non-romantic asexual, again, could be a grey asexual, or they could be a romantic. They can't be romantic if they're non-romantic, right? But they can be grey asexual, pure asexual. Does that make sense? So you've got pure asexuals, grey asexuals, romantic and non-romantic versions of each of those. So you also have variations of non-romantic people who are asexual. So non-romantic asexuals are called aromantics or aromantics. I pronounce them aromantics because for me it's a lot easier as a romantic asexual to call those aromantics. But most people pronounce them aromantic. So again, A with the romantic in front of it, or the A in front of the romantic, I should say, aromantic as absence of romantic attraction. So if you think of the A in front of asexual meaning absence of sexual attraction, and A in front of romantic as in lacks romantic attraction, absence of romantic attraction, right? That's what the A stands for when they're put together. So if we go to my book here and we're looking at Asexual Perspectives book, the A is right next to the sexual. There's no break in that. So I'm not saying this book is for sexual people. I'm saying it's for asexuals. And you have to be aware of that online, because I get a lot of guys thinking that I love sex because I'm calling myself an asexual person. But I'm not saying I'm a sexual person. I'm saying I'm asexual, as in I'm absence of sexual attraction. I hope that makes sense. But you can also get aromantics or aromantic people who are not asexual. So when I first came into the asexual community, I thought aromantics are just in the asexual community, and these people who lack romantic attraction were automatically asexuals, and I got that completely wrong. Someone corrected me on Twitter a long time ago saying you do realize you can get aromantic sexuals, like heterosexuals, and I had no clue these existed at that point. This is going back a long time now. I've done this channel since 2015. So I was on a learning curve back then. So from the experience and knowledge I have of the sexual people, as opposed to asexual people who are not experiencing any romantic attraction whatsoever, the majority of the ones I come across that aren't asexual but they don't experience any romance. So a heteromantic person usually belongs to the asexual community. So someone like me is a heteromantic. I get attracted to guys romantically and in lots of other ways, right? And so heteromantic is the equivalent of someone being heterosexual, really, but with just romance. So it's like hetero, as in I'm only romantically attracted to the opposite gender, which in my case is guys. You can be panromantic asexual, in which case you're attracted to multiple genders romantically. You can be biromantic, in which case you're attracted to two genders romantically, or homoromantic, you're attracted to the same gender romantically, right? And some people do have romantic attraction for different genders, but just sexual attraction for one gender. So it can get quite complicated for some people. If we just take asexuals, and some are romantic and some aren't romantic, the degree at which that person is romantic again can vary between different asexual people. Some asexuals who are non-romantic or aromantic, their absence of romantic attraction, are actually a grey romantic. So a pure aromantic is someone who doesn't experience any romantic attraction whatsoever, like a pure asexual doesn't experience any sexual attraction whatsoever. But there are also grey romantics. So a grey romantic, just a normal grey romantic asexual, is someone who can experience romantic attraction, does experience it, but only under limited route or specific circumstances, or again, they experience it, but not enough to want to act on it. So very similar to a grey asexual, but it's grey romantic. So it's in the essence of romance rather than sexual attraction. You can also get someone who's demi-romantic, who can only experience romantic attraction when a deep emotional bond has been formed, usually maintained and sustained. And that means that also it's very similar to a demisexual, but demisexual is a sexual equivalent. So a demisexual person is on the asexual spectrum, there's a more sexual end of it, under the grey sexual spectrum. And a demisexual can only experience sexual attraction and not unless a deep emotional connection has been formed, maintained, and sustained. But it's got to have that bond. Doesn't need to say they're going to experience sexual attraction if they do have a bond, but that's what's needed to be able to experience sexual attraction. So you've got the demi-romantics and demisexuals. Now, a person who's demisexual is not necessarily demi-romantic. They could be a hetero-romantic demisexual. So someone who's attracted to the opposite gender, but they're only sexually attracted to that gender once a deep emotional connection has been formed, a deep emotional bond. Otherwise, they don't experience sexual attraction, just romantic attraction to that person. Does that make sense? So, also underneath the aromantic spectrum of the grey romantic part of the asexual spectrum, I don't want to confuse you. So you can also get something called a cupiromantic. So a cupiromantic is someone who desires a romantic relationship despite not experiencing any romantic attraction whatsoever. So you've got pure aromantic asexual, doesn't experience any romance whatsoever. And then you've got the grey aromantic part of the aromantic spectrum. So you've got pure aromantics, then a spectrum of aromantics. And so you got pure, then you got grey romantic, then you got demi-romantic and cupiromantic. Does that make sense? So, but the demi and cupio and grey all fall under the grey part of the aromantic spectrum. So yeah, so the romantic part of the asexual spectrum has grey romance or, pure romance. So I'm a pure asexual person, don't experience any sexual attraction whatsoever. And I'm pure romantic, I experience romantic, but I'm more than pure romantic. I'm a hyper romantic. So I'm excessively romantic, which there's not that many people in the world like me, really. I have had some people come on this channel say they know other people that are aromantic sorry, not aromantic, they're aromantic, for example, and they know some other people that are romantic, highly romantic, hyper romantic. I've had a couple of hyper romantics excuse me, come on here recently. Not recently, sorry, in chat a while ago. I've had someone who's been on here recently who's an aromantic asexual and said their friend is a hyper romantic asexual, but I've also had some people who came on here a while ago in the comments saying they are hyper romantic as well. I'm still not fully better, by the way. So yeah, so you've got the pure asexuals, the grey asexuals, the pure non-romantic asexuals, and the grey romantic asexuals. They're all under the asexual spectrum umbrella of identities. You have quite a lot of different subcategories. I'm not going to go into every subcategory. There's new subcategories coming out all the time. There is a category for sapiosexual. Now, sapiosexual, some people don't believe that's part of the asexual spectrum. Other people do. So a sapiosexual is someone who can only experience sexual attraction through intelligence. But it's like, can they just experience sexual attraction only through intelligence, or do they experience more sexual attraction because they're intelligently attracted to someone? So I guess the verdict's out a bit on that one. Now, when I first came into the asexual realm, if you like, first found out I was asexual in 2014, there wasn't many people talking about sapiosexual, but in more recent times, in the last year or two, there's been a lot more people talking about sapiosexual being part of the asexual spectrum. Now, if sapiosexuals can only experience sexual attraction through intelligence, then they'd be on the grey end of the asexual spectrum. A phrasexual person is on the grey asexual part of the asexual spectrum, and a phrasexual person is someone who experiences sexual attraction initially, and then the more that person is involved in the relationship with them, they lose the sexual attraction. And that's similar to a free romantic person who experiences romantic attraction initially, but the more they've been together with that person, the less romance they feel towards them. So this is kind of disheartening. It's very difficult for a free romantic or a free sexual person to maintain and sustain a relationship, because literally when they get into a relationship, their feelings change. They can change quite quickly, or maybe over a few months or up to 8 months. But in my experience of talking to free sexuals, some of them, as soon as the other person starts becoming really interested, involved with them, it's like their romantic feelings, if they're free romantic, or their sexual feelings, if they're free sexual, just disappear. Now, obviously, if someone's phrasexual, but they can still experience romantic attraction for the person, that could work fine. But if someone's very romantic and phrasexual, so they lose sexual attraction and romantic attraction for that person, and no other attractions are enough to keep the relationship going, then this can get very disheartening and be very difficult. Excuse me. So they have quite a hard time maintaining, sustaining, for example, romantic relationships, but some of them don't want to. They just would rather, if they're a phrasexual, meet up, have some sex, and be in a relationship temporarily, or have some casual relationships, because they don't actually experience a sexual attraction all the time. So they love the feeling, some of them, of sexual attraction. They want that feeling back again. And the only way they can get that back again is by not being in a relationship with the person they're currently in, or not stop seeing them, or see them less frequently, and not have a serious relationship with a person. Do you see what I mean? So it's kind of really hard for them. There are some people that fantasize about sex, but they don't actually want to do it in reality. These people, again, belong to the asexual, grey asexual part of the spectrum. So it can get really complicated and difficult. Every asexual is different. We all desire a different amount of touching. So asexuality is not the same as celibacy. Celibacy is a choice to abstain. Asexuality is not the same as having trauma that stops you doing something physically and stops you having sex because of the traumatic experience. You really do need to seek therapy out to deal with the trauma of that experience. I'm not saying that there's no asexuals that don't have trauma. There's a lot of asexuals that still have trauma. Doesn't stop them being asexual, but if the reason they can't have sex is because of a traumatic experience rather than because they lack sexual attraction, then obviously that is a sign that they need to get some help through a therapist to help them to overcome their difficulties around sex and sexual intimacy because of the difficult situations they've been in, which is understandable, right? There's no shame in that. Some people can't have sex because of their disability. That's not the same as being asexual. You know, some people are impotent. That's not the same as being asexual. I get guys come in my inbox that seem to think that because they're the type of sex they want's different, or because they have some kinks, they're asexual. Because they are impotent, they're asexual. Because their impotency stops them having relationships, they think that's asexual, and it's not. None of those things are asexual. It actually quite alarms me when I've got people in my inbox trying to say they're asexual because they can't have sex for some reason. That isn't the same as being asexual. Asexuality is a lack of sexual attraction. It's an absence of it. You don't have those feelings in the first place. It's not about suppression or repression of feelings or not allowing yourself to go to therapy and work through the trauma around sexual intimacy. It's not those things. Why asexuality is when you look at someone and you look at everyone in the world and you just don't feel that way. If you're pure asexual, it doesn't matter who you look at, who you're around, you don't feel like I want to have sex with you specifically, a specific person or people. Right? Some asexuals still masturbate, some asexuals still experience arousal, some asexuals even have a sex drive, as in they have a drive for sex, but it isn't aimed at anyone. But I would say they're on the more sexual end of the asexual spectrum if they have a sex drive, but it's not aimed at anyone. They still have a drive for sex itself. But arousal is not the same as sexual attraction, and arousal is not the same as sexual desire. So sexual attraction, when we talk about asexuality and being absence of sexual attraction, it means that you don't get the need, urge, or want for partnered sexual intercourse. That basically is what sexual attraction is. It's when you look at someone or some people and think, I want to have sex with you, right? You're saying it specifically aimed at someone. Sexual desire is the desire for sex in and of itself, regardless of who you do it with. You just need the sex because you desire the sex. And arousal is a feeling in your genitalia, which may be linked to another person, or it might not. It doesn't have to be. So some asexuals can experience arousal, but it isn't linked to anyone, isn't linked to a need to have sex. Maybe that person wants to masturbate themselves, but they don't actually have that pushing them to have sex or making them have sexual desires towards a specific person. You know, it doesn't go together. So for a heterosexual person, for example, who experiences sexual attraction, usually they'll get the urges, they'll get the arousal, they get the urges, and the arousal and the sexual urges will go together, and it'll be like, oh, I really want to have sex now. That's how it feels to a heterosexual, from what I understand, and my experience of being on the receiving end of that, if you know what I mean, because I can just tell with the way a guy's body is, how they think, what they want, you know, because I get loads of guys in my inbox and in person wanting sex with me, and it's just like, I really don't want that. I'm not interested in it. So I am an asexual person who has had sex in the past before I found out I'm asexual. Last time was 2011. We're now in 2023 when I'm doing this video live, and so that's a long time. Sometime in October it was. So yeah, I don't know what, but we're on the 28th of October now, and I'm guessing that I've probably had all my sex by then in 2011. I knew by November I was completely free of sex, you know, in 2011. So I don't know what the actual day was in October 2011, but that was in my last long-term relationship. And how I discovered I'm asexual, first of all, in 2013, I just couldn't bring myself to have sex anymore. Like I was out of a long-term relationship at the end of 2011. So November the 5th, 2011 it was. And I made sure that I didn't get into a relationship for or date anyone for almost a year. So I used to have guys interested in me, usually 3 at once, and it wasn't until November, I think it was. So yeah, about a year later, I think it was November 2012 when I actually started dating. I wasn't even into dating before. Like dating, excuse me, was a new concept for me because I'd been in a relationship for years, but I decided I needed to be single for at least a year, ideally, because I wanted to make sure I could be on my own. I used to be codependent in the past. I don't know if you know what that means, but it's not good. It means you dependent on another person for your happiness, really, and emotional regulation, all that lot. I didn't know I was codependent. I only, kind of learned that over the years, over the last couple of years, this year and last year, about attachment styles, codependency, all that type of thing. But I would say I was codependent then because I was really relying on a relationship all the time. I couldn't be on my own. Right now, I haven't been in a long-term relationship since then. And I haven't even had a relationship since 2017. I like being on my own. I don't actually want to live with a guy ever again, even in a relationship. I'm happier on my own. I like to be able to control my own environment, have what I like in it, have my own peace of mind, pay my own bills, and I'm just really not comfortable living with someone else again. That's where I'm at, really. It just doesn't bode well for me. I don't like that. And I think, with people who are asexual, I think we think differently, about kids and marriage and obviously sex, and our lifestyles can be very different. And because we live without the need often, if we're a pure asexual, for example, without genitalia, we're not that bothered about it. Obviously, some asexuals are different. Some asexuals do like the naked body, even though they don't want sex with it. But if we say in general, especially with pure asexuals, so don't experience any sexual attraction, we're not interested in genitalia and stuff, it kind of means that when you're thinking about living with someone, you might not have such a need. Heterosexuals tend to need sex a lot. So living with someone else is kind of very more convenient for them. I mean, I was living with heterosexuals for years. I was in 2 long-term relationships, and I did one of them. I lived with just for 6 months, and then we lived separately. We were separately before, and then separately after that, and it was better. The other person I lived with for years, since I left college, the day after I left college, I should say. So yeah, but I much prefer living on my own. I think with being asexual, because we're not focused on genitalia and sex, we can live on our own a lot more if we like to. Because with a heterosexual person, they want sex regularly. So you living with them is a lot more convenient for them, right? And like, I don't know if you've got any experience at all about being with heterosexuals, but there's things like, they wake up in the morning, they want sex, or they're going to sleep, they want sex, or they're turning over, they want sex. They can vary various instances. And so for heterosexuals living with someone, they do have quite a strong attachment as well. They like to be living with someone usually. It's what society expects, and a lot of them are kind of conditioned that way. It's kind of like you live together, you go out to work, you come home, watch TV, eat together, and that's about it a lot of the time. I don't like that life, I really don't. But even if it's more exciting than that, usually it's kind of convenient. You sleep together, and so they're in bed with you, and that means they can roll over and have sex with you and stuff like that. So if you're an asexual that doesn't like sex, I find it's a lot less pressurizing if you have your own place. And obviously, if you end up in a situation where you're tied to a heterosexual person and financially, for example, and they want sex and you really don't want it, yes, you can say no and you should say no. But it can be very difficult if you feel like you're trapped in a relationship financially, but you actually want to get out because it's not suitable for you. Now, if we go back to 2013, I couldn't bring myself to have sex again, ever. So I had a short-term relationship with a Bangladeshi guy. It was only short-term because he cheated on me in 3 weeks. And when I was with him, we were kissing a lot on the bed and stuff because I had him around my place. I don't have guys around my place anymore. But we did. And he was so hot aesthetically. He was so good looking, but I just couldn't bring myself to have sex with him. However, good looking I thought he was, and I experienced arousal. So however aroused I was kissing him, it just didn't make me want to have sex, and that's when I knew there was something different about me. Because I could kiss him a lot, but I never wanted sex, and I just couldn't bring myself to do that anymore. It's like my mind just completely shut that off, and I didn't want to do it, and I didn't feel that way anymore, like I even could do that. Whereas in the past when I'd had sex, it was consensual and I was okay doing it. There was a time when I was in my last relationship, long-term relationship, not short-term I'm talking about, and I didn't actually mind having sex with him. I'd rather have not done it. I'd rather have done the washing up, even though I hate washing up. I'd rather have done other stuff, but I didn't mind. It was consensual with him. He was good at that. And so, I kind of just let him get on with it. But there was a lot of times when I didn't have that with him, and sometimes 2 or 3 months without it. And that was really good for me. And part of the reason why I stayed with him is because I thought I'm never going to get a guy like this ever again, where I'm not having sex with him for 2 or 3 months. And so I stayed with him, and he wasn't a good guy for me. He was good sexually, which I'm really grateful for, but he wasn't a good person in a lot of other ways. And I was tied to him financially at one point because I lived with him. And that's what I mean. I think it's quite difficult for asexuals if they're in a relationship with a heterosexual person and they find out that partway through that relationship, the person is highly sexual and they feel pressurized to have sex and they feel stuck because they're in a situation where they live with that person and they're financially tied and they can't get out of that situation. I think that's very difficult. I prefer these days, much prefer to be on my own. I think it's a lot less stressful living on my own. I think it's a lot better to just take care of myself. I don't need sex. I don't need genitalia. I don't need to see that. So there's no real reason for me to be living with someone. However, because I'm a hyper romantic, there is a part of me that likes the romantic side of living together. But it's a very small bit, right? Because when I think of like housework, no, I don't want to do housework, cooking or cleaning for a guy. And if I lived with a guy, I'd probably have to do a lot more housework because he'd need it clean and tidy. And so would I with him. And I can't really ask him to do it if I'm not doing it myself. But I've got a pain condition. I really don't like doing that. So I minimize it. I like to do hoovering like once a week, maybe twice a week. And that's about it. And my flat's quite easy to clean and hoover. It doesn't take that long, maybe 20 minutes at the most to hoover the whole flat. So it's quite small, so there's not much to hoover. And I like that, and I don't use pots and pans. I just use tinfoil trays, put them in the bin after I've ate my food. And so paper plates as well, really handy, and chuck them in the bin after eating. This is how I live my life to reduce my time I spend doing tasks I don't like. And I think that if you're an asexual that has disabilities, you can think differently. Like some people, they believe it's better for them to be with someone when they have disabilities because that person can carry the shopping for them. They can do tasks in the house that they can't do. And that's all good and well if you have a person who's prepared to do a lot of the work for you, who's prepared to cook and clean for you, who's prepared to do your shopping with you. But if you're with someone who will resent that, not necessarily because they're a horrible person, but just because they believe that you're being unfair to them, that can cause a lot of anxiety, a lot of upset and pain on both or parts. And it can make you feel like you're being asked to do something you can't do because it really hurts you. And it can make you miserable. And the other person can think, well, you're taking me for granted because you're not doing any work much. So I just think personally for me, I just like my own separate space, my own separate bed. I have a double bed all to myself and I need a lot of space in bed because I've got a lot of pressure points with fibro. So for asexuals, what would be the ideal scenario then, living together or not? So there's different options. One is obviously you live separately, which is my favorite option. But there's differences to this, nuances if you like. So although I like living separately, my ideal scenario is a guy would come to live near me but not with me. I think a long distance relationship in which the person was living in a completely different city, unless it was London, it might be okay because I really love London. But, other than that, I mean, there are places nearer, Plymouth and Bristol, these type of areas. But I think really our ideal scenario is the guy would come to move to live in my city with me, but with me would come to live in my city. I was going to say with me because I'm in the city, but I meant not with me as in the same accommodation as me, but would come to live in the city that I'm in. So they would live with me in the city, but not with me in my home. They'll come and live in my city is an easy way of describing it, right? So that I would be able to see them, they'd be able to see me, be able to go out on dates, be able to spend time with each other, but we wouldn't actually live together. So they can go back to their place, I can go back to mine. That's my ideal scenario. That's how I like. I've had that scenario in the past. It did work out relatively well. The difficulty is when you live in separate places, you kind of got to have duplicates of things, like duplicate toothpaste, duplicate like shaving foam, shower gels, hair straighteners, hair dryer. You got to have you got to have your own stuff over their place basically, and you got to lug stuff backwards and forwards, like clothes and stuff, if you're staying over their place. If you live really near each other, like only a couple of doors away, you don't need to bother with that. You can just like go backwards and forwards to each other's homes. And that's what I really like. I'd like someone who lived really near me, but not actually with me. Therefore, we can go to each other's places, but we'd have to have boundaries in place with that, because you can't just be turning up at each other's doorsteps. If you've got friends around, got plans of your own, got to go out to do stuff, got business stuff going on. Do you know what I mean? If you do live close together, like, you've really got to put in place strict boundaries with each other and also quality time with each other. So I do think there are difficulties living in proximity to each other, but not with each other, right? Everything has its pros and cons, but living near each other but not with each other is called a living apart together relationship, an LAT. And there are people who do this who aren't asexual because they find it more beneficial. They find it more healthier for their relationship to live separately, to have their own separate space. When I worked in retail in furniture, I once had a man and a woman looking at bedroom furniture, but they both lived in separate places. So they're both looking for furniture for their own places, but they were doing it together. And I think they were married and they did this. So just because you're married doesn't mean to say you can't do this. Or if you want to get married doesn't mean to say you can't do this, because you can. So it all depends on your own individual needs, right? Another option would be to live in the same place as each other, but in separate rooms. So you share a kitchen, maybe share a bathroom, where you might be able to have an ensuite bathroom on your bedroom, but you have separate bedrooms, right? So everything's together, usually shared, but not the bedrooms. Or, like I said, you could have a bedroom with an ensuite and share everything else. The other alternative is to live in the same house together, but have separate flats, like separate apartments. So you live in the same building together, but you have separate apartments. This way, especially if the person's heterosexual, you get your own asexual needs met. You can spend time on your own. You don't, if you're needed to repulse like me, you don't have to look at a person naked all the time in your own home, wandering around because it'll be their home as well. You can kind of have more strict boundaries in place for that type of thing. So that's another option, be in the same flat. Or fourth option is to have adjoining houses, where maybe you actually buy two adjoining houses, one buys one, or you rent them bang next to each other. So this is similar to living near each other, but this is where you're actual neighbors. And some people actually have house that you buy together, thanks for the hearts, and then you have like a door that separates one house to another, and then you can open the door when you want to go through to the other person's house. I have heard of that. I think it's with famous people who mostly do that, because I think it costs a lot of money to do that type of thing. But, that is another option. So you've got all these different options. Obviously, you can live together. There are other things you could do, like you could have an extension on the house. You could possibly have, it depends what type of accommodation you want. I mean, some people could have like a caravan in the garden, or have like, do you know what I mean? But you don't really want to be living in a caravan, but some people do, gypsy people or other people, or mobile home. But there are a lot of laws with that. Usually, if you've got a mobile home, it has to be on a site that allows mobile homes. You can't usually just plonk a mobile home anywhere. But, that is another option. If someone had the main house and then you lived in a mobile home, like on the land, or, if you had plot of land with the house or something, you got planning permission for it. So there is a lot of different options for living close together, but not actually with each other. And I think some of these options should be explored by asexuals, especially if it's a mixed heterosexual asexual relationship. Now, I know there are asexuals in relationships with heterosexuals. They live together, they don't have a problem with nudity, they don't have a problem with sharing a bed, and some of them have sex. They're usually on the more sexual end of the asexual spectrum, the asexuals that are more open to sex, they're more willing to have it, that are more okay with having it, that don't actually mind it as an activity. Like, I am a pure asexual, but I do come from a background where I have had sex, but it wasn't like most people would have it. I don't, most people who are heterosexual, for example, from what I understand, they'd have sex like a minimum of 3 times a week, if not every day, and so that is just not suitable for me. So I just am happy that I haven't had sex for all those years, and I do think, could I ever have sex again, because I've had it in the past, but I keep coming back with the same answer as no, because I'm really not into that, and it's hard because I'm a hyper kisser, and a hyper kisser with zero sexual attraction, it's just not a good combination, really. So most people I come across that are into kissing are heterosexuals. I don't find many asexuals that love kissing. I think they're few and far between. Most asexuals, in my experience, they like a peck on the cheek or a little bit of kissing. They don't like full on tongue kissing like I do for literally hours, because I'm a hyper kisser. I can kiss for hours and I never, ever, ever want sex. And when I've done that with guys, they're like, how do you hold yourself back? Some guys ask me that for just a bit of kissing. Like, how do you hold yourself back? Like, how do you stop yourself, like, wanting sex? It's like, I'm not stopping myself. I genuinely do not have those feelings. There is not anything in my body that makes me want to have sex. I just don't get those feelings. And I am a very true example of asexuality. I am absence of all sexual attraction. I don't look at anyone and think I want to have sex with you. It just doesn't work like that for me. I can get aroused, I can get highly aroused through kissing, but the arousal is through kissing, the sensation of kissing, the thought of kissing, the feel of kissing, because I'm really into kissing. To me, the kissing is the most beautiful physical aspect of an intimate relationship, romantic relationship. That is what I personally like, because I'm a hyper kisser. A lot of other asexuals are not like that. And so that is why it's difficult for me. One of the reasons why it's so difficult for me to find the right asexual partner for me. One is I like younger guys. So, people who are heterosexual seem to love older women. Like, I get no end of them approaching me on Badoo, for example, and some on, I've just started using Facebook dating again. But on Badoo, there's tons of guys who like older women. They even say it, I like an older woman, right? But a lot of the time I don't act like an older woman, nor do I look like quite a lot of the same age, birth certificate age women as I am, I look at them and like, I just don't relate to you. But yeah, so it's really important to find what works for you and what you like. And, some people have said to me, oh, well, your needs are very niche, and like, how can you ever find someone for a relationship? I want you to know that it's okay to be single, right? If you're a asexual person and you never find someone for a relationship, the most important thing is the relationship you have with yourself, right? This means you need to self-love, self-date, take care of yourself, get some friends, really good quality friends. You don't need tons of friends. Some people are like, oh, I need tons of friends. It's like, why? You don't need tons of friends. You need some high quality, good friends that are reliable and trustworthy, who'll be with you through thick and thin, and some of us might never find the right person for us to be in a relationship with, you know? Doesn't mean to say we can't try and have fun trying, but we have to also understand that we can be happy on our own. There's nothing wrong with being single. Sometimes it's a lot more fun, and there's a lot of enjoyment in being a solo artist of life, as I call it. But there are asexuals that I know who are in relationships with other asexuals, two of whom are actually married to their asexual partner. So it doesn't mean to say you can't find someone for a relationship just because you're asexual, because you can find someone for a relationship. It's proven with people who've done it, who are actually married and who are going to be together forever. The two couples I know, they're very loyal to each other. They're not the type of people that would get divorced. And as far as I know, the people they're with are absolutely amazing for them. So it can happen. Don't think that it can't happen. I know another asexual person that's been married 25 years. They thought their partner was heterosexual, but I think their partner turned out to be demisexual in the end. So, and they're aromantic, And so just because you're aromantic, if you lack romantic attraction, doesn't mean to say it automatically means you never want a relationship. Some aromantics, you don't ever want a relationship. You're happy with friends. You don't need anyone, don't need anything in terms of an actual relationship, right? But other aromantic asexuals, they do want a relationship, even if they don't experience romantic attraction. I want a relationship, partly. Sometimes I don't. despite not experiencing sexual attraction. It's the same type of thing. Just because someone doesn't experience one type of attraction doesn't mean to say they can't experience other types of attraction. Some aromantic asexuals that lack romantic attraction, they can still have aesthetic attraction, for example. They could still be intelligently attracted to someone, for example. They could be so attracted to someone's personality that that's enough for them in the relationship to have their company and personality. They might be okay to do romantic things, even if they don't experience romantic themselves. Other romantic people might not have their full needs met with an aromantic person, and an aromantic person might have repulsion towards romance, in which case they're not going to want a romantic relationship at all. So you have to take the individual for who they are, right? There's no one size fits all with asexuality. We're all so very different. You know, some people like a lot of touching, a lot of sensuality. They're sensual asexual. They want stroking on the head and the hair. They want massages. They want to feel physical touch a lot. They like to be stroked on the arm. They like to have all this together feeling. I'm sensual, the guy's upper body. And in a relationship scenario, even dating scenario, I do like to be like sensual. I like to be touching the guy's upper body, right? I love holding hands. I love kissing. That's a kind of really sensual, passionate side of me. But I don't want sex. And so it does make things very difficult when you're dating, because obviously a lot of heterosexuals, they need sex. Even when they say they don't, a lot of them lie, unfortunately. And I don't really know why they do this that much, but some of them I think do it because they like playing games. Other ones, they just want to have a connection with someone. They're that desperate for a connection with someone that they're willing to say they're not bothered about sex just to maintain a connection with you. You know, but there are very few heterosexuals that don't need sex, but they're few and far between. But yeah, for me personally, like, trying to find the right asexual guy for me is really difficult because I don't want sex, which is fine. A lot of asexuals don't, but I like younger guys, and heterosexual guys seem fine with liking an older woman. But a lot of asexual guys that I come across seem to have a problem with it. And I'm like, why? Why is there a problem? Like, I don't understand. Like, sexual guys will happily have sex with an older woman, snog an older woman, be with an older woman, cuddle an older woman, hold hands with an older woman. Yeah, when it comes to asexuality, when I don't want sex and stuff, it's like, don't want that. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's their loss, isn't it? You know, variety's the spice of life, they say. And so anyway, you know, and also with me, I like Indian guys, and they usually need marriage in the very least if they're asexual. And I don't want marriage, you know, I really don't. I've got to be true to myself. And I would urge you to be true to yourself. It's better to know exactly what you want and know your deal breakers, the things you can and can't be flexible on, than try to be something you're not. Because if you try to be something you're not, you'll just get rubbish coming your way. Excuse me. You'll get what you don't want, right? And that's not what we're here for in life. We're here to live a life of abundance, as in terms of lots of love and happiness and success, whatever success means to you. And we're here to enjoy our lives, you know, and we can enjoy our lives as a solo artist of life. Lately, since I've been to Oxford, I think it's just better for me to go out clubbing, kiss different guys, come home and not bother with them anymore, to be honest with you, because I just, you know, I don't see the point in having a relationship at the moment with everything that's going on in my life. I've got a lot going on in my life, as in the studying I'm doing. And yes, if the right guy came along, then I would consider a relationship still. But the quality of guys I'm getting through come into my life, you know, I just think I'd rather just like kiss guys rather than be in a relationship with them. Jonathan, hello, you're on early. Yes, I've been on here for like 44 minutes because it's Ace Awareness Week, and I know some asexuals are around earlier. I thought I'd be here earlier for people because it's the last day today of Ace Awareness Week. Happy Ace Awareness Week, or Ace Week it's called. Because I've been away this week and not being able to stream as much because my throat wasn't good. It's still a bit coughy, as you can tell. Then, you know, I thought I'd come on here tonight to spring a Q&A. So if anyone's got any questions about asexuality that I haven't already covered, please ask away. So some people as well, I went into earlier about celibacy, and celibacy is an actual choice. And it does annoy me when I get guys on Facebook wanting to join my groups because they're celibate. I'm like, it's not the same as being celibate. Having said that, some asexuals do identify as celibate anyway. So it can get a bit confusing. It's like, are you just celibate because you're stopping yourself from having the urges of sex, in which case you're not asexual, or are you celibate because you're saying that you don't experience any sexual attraction, but you also choose not to have sex? So, but celibacy and asexuality are not the same things. So what else to do with asexuality? So some asexuals want children and some don't. Some asexuals will have children naturally through sexual intercourse, others won't. And some asexuals will just literally have sex to have the children, then not have sex ever again. And some asexuals will have IVF and adopt. I'm personally not into having kids at all. I don't want children. I've never wanted children since I've been 15 years old. And so again, that can be very difficult when you're dating. On Badoo, for example, a lot of guys want kids. And it's like, yeah, you have to do sex usually to get kids, or usually with a heterosexual you do. Obviously, you don't have to, but when they say I want kids someday, that means they want kids by normal means, natural means, whatever that means. Because they're on Badoo, it's not a question that, do you want kids? And then you have the three options. Well, which one do you want? Natural means to adopt or IVF? Neither can I. I cannot fathom how anyone of any gender wants kids. Yeah, for my mum, though, for example, she wanted a child and to be a housewife. She's the exact opposite to me. I love my mum dearly, but we're so opposites. Completely the opposite type of person. I have to say this. Very opposite, right? My mum's dream, she's told me over and over again, was to be a housewife and have a child. Obviously, if my mum hadn't had me, I wouldn't be here to help asexual, so I'm glad she did. But I'm like, for me, that is a really can't think of much else worse type of dream. I'm glad my mum wanted kids though. Yes, exactly. You wouldn't be here else. So we have to be thankful for the people that do want kids. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having conversations right now. I need to get some paper for my nose while I'm live streaming. It's because I'm not quite fully well yet. You might hear my throat's a little bit nasally. I picked up some bug, I think, while I was at Oxford. People were sick there, so it wasn't good. So yeah, that wasn't good. The speaking was good. So yeah, so I personally have never wanted kids. I've got pregnancy repulsion actually, so I don't actually like looking at a woman's tummy pregnant. Like I had to work opposite a nursery years ago because I worked on a furniture department, and for some stupid reason they decided to stick nursery, this is kids nursery stuff, opposite the furniture department. I have no idea what the logic is in that. Really, we're talking about beds and fitted bedrooms, and we weren't advertising baby beds specifically at the point in front of me. It was like adult beds. There was some bunk beds, and mine was like adult furniture. There were, however, a few cots, I think, actually on the nursery department. But I mean, why put it there? It just seemed really out of place. Jonathan, I've just recovered from COVID myself, although I'm still testing positive. Oh, you're testing positive. You still got it then. Sorry to hear that. I hope you get better soon. Yeah, if you're testing positive, you still got it. So I had that before. I had that a month ago and I lost my voice. So I'm going to digress a little bit now because I was speaking, as you know, at Blue Talks, Oxford University, but I am a bit concerned about pursuing a speaking career when I get affected by respiratory infections a lot and my voice can go. Like I couldn't stream on here because the night before last, my voice is like my throat was like it's on fire. And because I got an autoimmune condition, that's difficult. So I have I have messaged the founder of Blue Talks today because I still want to pursue that, as in do the stuff I'm doing, as in continue with the cause I bought. I still want to do a TEDx talk next year. I still want to raise as much publicity for asexuality as possible, but also doing that as an actual career as in that being a huge focus. I don't know if that's going to work because I need to rely on my voice to do a speaking career. And this year I've been quite sick. I mean, I had a bug near the beginning of the year. Well, further on near the beginning of the year. Then I ended up getting a respiratory infection for over 6 weeks. And then I had COVID and lost my voice as well. Jonathan, I'm going to attempt to go cook whilst listening to the stream, so it'll probably disappear from the chat. That's okay. I've been on here 50 minutes, so I don't want to overrun tonight, especially with my voice. So yeah. So to continue though, so with asexuality stuff. And so what's something that's very interesting is when I've been talking about asexuality, when I went to Blue Talks, for example, and was a speaker, I got some people that were really supportive and really good. And they said they finally understood asexuality because of the way I described it at Blue Talks, my talk. So it'll be very interesting when it comes out to see it, because they heard me talk about asexuality before, but they didn't exactly know what it was. But they said because I did the talk, I explained it in more detail, they understood it more. Like when I said, for example, and for me, it means I don't get the need, urge, or want for partner's sexual intercourse, but I do get attracted to guys romantically and aesthetically, just not sexually. I don't have those feelings. They said they could understand it a lot more and they enjoy my talk. And there's people that enjoyed listening to me talk about asexuality there, even though it's not a topic they would usually come across or want to know about or take an active interest in. So it's good that I am getting the word of asexuality out there. And why is it so important? Like, some people are like, oh, who cares if you're asexual? What does it matter that you're asexual? Why do you need to tell everyone about it? And the reason why it's so important is because there are kids growing up in schools who, they're growing up and they're in school, I should say, rather than growing up in schools. But they do spend a lot of their life growing up in schools. Like schools are a huge proportion of your life when you're a kid. So there's people who are growing up who are in school, and it's like some people around them are speaking a foreign language, like an alien language they don't understand, because they're talking about sexual stuff. And there's some kids right now who are feeling lonely, like left out and despondent because they just don't have the sexual feelings. They don't feel like everyone else. Why should those kids not have some support? Why should those kids think they're all alone? Why should those kids go through life, thinking there's no one else like them in the world, thinking that they just can't, they can't relate to other people? Why should those kids be lonely and left out and grow up thinking they're dysfunctional, there's something wrong with them or something broken, and they don't say anything? They're so scared because of society being horrible to them and ridiculing them and being nasty, and when they come to have relationships, it can be very scary for an asexual. If an asexual doesn't want sex and someone's pushing them for sex, it can be so scary. There should be education in the world that specifically says there are people who do not have sexual feelings, who do not get the need, urge, or want for partner's sexual intercourse. These are real people. It's a genuine sexual orientation and it needs to be taken seriously. Yes, there are asexuals that don't mind having sex, but they aren't really at such a disadvantage to those who don't want sex. Because if you are an asexual who wants sex, doesn't mind having sex, enjoys sex as an activity to do, or is okay with sex, you haven't really got such a disadvantage to the asexuals who don't want sex. Because the asexuals who don't want sex, we're more likely to end up in sexual situations that are no good for us because we don't want sex in the first place. We're more likely to be able to feel uncomfortable and great discomfort when people around us are talking about sexual things that we know we're never going to want to be involved with. And a lot of the things they talk about to do with sex, different stages, different making out stages, it's like, what the hell are they talking about, right? And so there's a big disconnect in the world for asexuals a lot of the time growing up. If they've got families that are overtly sexual, for example, parents or something, they're like talking about their sex life in front of the kids and stuff like that. And you got a sister or a brother or something that's like, oh, when are you going to get laid, and saying all this language. It can be really off-putting. It can be really difficult. It can be very mentally draining. And when sex is everywhere, like in magazines, on TV, in newspapers and films, you can just be like, please, you're giving me headache. Can you give it a rest? Because I've had enough. And so all the things that most of society seems to like and be okay with For us, it can be really uncomfortable, disconcerting. It can make us feel disassociated from ourselves. It can make us like not understand ourselves because we can't put ourselves in contexts that other people are in. It can make us feel overwhelmed. It can make us feel just lonely and left out. There are so many issues that come up with someone not understanding their own sexual orientation or identity. There's something missing, they feel probably in them, and missing from society in general. And it's like, we're here. A lot of asexuals are just underground, as in they don't come out as asexual. They don't tell the world. But this is why we need to band together and tell the world. We need to have a voice. This is why I personally am trying to get recognition about asexuality wherever I can to global audiences so that we can help prevent sexual abuse situations and rape situations even more. Obviously, I can't promise that. You know, you can't stop someone who's hell bent on doing something to you. You can't definitely stop that. I have stopped someone sexually abusing me years ago. I physically stopped them doing that to me. That's not why I'm asexual. Because a lot of people jump to conclusion, oh, you've had sexual abuse, that's why you're asexual. It's like, no, I've had sex after that, which was good sex, right? Even though I don't want sex anymore. And I never really did then. I was okay with it. I was fine to accept it. It was fine. It was good sex in the moment. Last long-term ex, that was fine. You know? But I'm just saying that by doing this, I can't promise that someone's not going to get sexually abused and stuff, but we can help to prevent more sexual abuse situations. That's what I'm saying, by banding together and getting asexuality recognized globally and making sure that people know globally that some people do not want like or need sex, and that is natural for some people. We need this to be accepted, because only when it's accepted will people calm down and stop trying to put pressure on us to do things we don't want to do, to see a doctor, to take a pill, and to push us and our feelings and emotions down and invalidate us. You know, we don't need that in our lives. We need people to be accepting and to be understanding and to really get into the mindsets that there are people that genuinely don't have those feelings. At the moment, a lot of the time, it's incomprehensible to them. But the more they are exposed to asexuals, the more they'll get used to us. So with anything in life, usually, it doesn't always work this way, but in terms of psychology, the more that you're exposed to something, usually the more you get used to it. This is why adverts work so well. In the marketing world, even in sales, retail sales that I used to be in, you used to have 7 touches between you and the customer, you being the company and the customer, right? You representing the company. So what they mean by touching is 7 instances of coming into contact and communication with the company before that person would buy anything. Because the more you're exposed to that thing, the more likely you are, if you continue exposing yourself to it, to want to be part of that, to want to do it, to want to be in it, to want to know about it. It's like exposure, right? It's like when you see an advert come up all the time on YouTube, you either want to get rid of it and like, this was really not for me, or you continue to see the same adverts over and over again. Why is that? Because they know that it works. It's like exposure. The more they expose it to you, the more they put it in your head, the more your brain wants that usually. If you want to reprogram your mind, you have to put good things into your mind all the time and expose yourself to good things, right? So the more the world is exposed to asexuality and exposed to people that don't want like or need sex, the more they hear it, the more they have touches, whether that's through marketing, a person they know, a family member, the more they are touched by it in their lives, the more they'll accept it. So this is why we need to get the word out. This is why people need to keep hearing about asexuality. They need to be exposed to it in multiple ways throughout the globe, because only then will we get taken seriously and have understanding with us more. That's got to happen for us to change the world in the way that they perceive sex, right? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with people liking, wanting, needing sex. I'm quite happy for the people who like, want, and need sex. It's consensual, enjoy it to have it. Go for gold. I have no problem with that. But what I do have a problem with is when they invalidate people who are not like them, who don't want, like, or need sex, who don't enjoy it, and say you've got to have it, it's a part of life. It's natural. Something's wrong with you if you don't have it. You know? Shannon. Hi, nice to see you. And so that's what I have a problem with, right? It's not on for them to invalidate us. It's not okay for them to say, well, you're not natural, well, you have to have it, you need it. Why should someone dictate to us our life and how we feel? Would they allow us to do that to them? No. So why should we be any different? I never hear of any heterosexuals having to justify themselves. Oh, I'm heterosexual and I like sex. Okay, so why do you like sex? Because I do. But why? Because I do. Well, there's people that don't like sex. So why do you specifically like it? Because the world does. It's like, well, actually, that's not true because there are people that don't. They can live without it. So why can't you live without it? Are you addicted to sex? Have you got an addiction problem? Because maybe you actually have got an addiction problem. Maybe you should go to see a counselor or therapist for your addiction to sex because you believe you can't live without it. So therefore, maybe your heterosexuality isn't actually normal because you're excessively sexual and you've got a compulsion to have sex. And so actually being able to be without sex means you're not addicted to sex. So therefore we have a less of an issue and problem because we don't have that addiction. And addiction's really bad for you, right? So why don't you get checked out by a doctor, a therapist, or take a pill to stop your addiction? But then you get addicted to the pills, right? You get my meaning. So why is it different for heterosexuals than it is for asexuals? We shouldn't have to justify ourselves. And I do not justify myself. And I always say, do not justify yourself. Do not get into negotiation with someone else about your sexuality. There is no negotiation. You're asexual, that's it. If they don't accept it, that's their problem. It's not our problem. So you have to understand that heterosexuals don't negotiate their sexuality. It's like when people are doing TED talks, like TEDx talks. I've already applied for a TEDx talk for next year. I'm at the first stage of accepting my application. Got a Zoom call next year with the person running it. But a lot of the time you do TED talks, TEDx talks, there's been other people talking about asexuality. You've got to do some scientific evidence to prove you're asexual, right? To prove asexuality exists. And it's like, I don't hear of talks where you've got to prove you're heterosexual. Like, prove you're heterosexual. Prove it's real. Prove it exists. It's like, why is it different with asexuality? Why is it different with asexuals? Why do we have to prove our existence scientifically? I don't get involved in scientific stuff. I will come up with something for TEDx because obviously they like statistics, right? But I am not interested in the scientific reason of why someone's asexual or not. I'm asexual. I don't need scientific proof to know I'm asexual. Some asexuals love scientific proof and they'll come to me and go, oh, so what's the scientific evidence for asexuality? And they might start saying stuff to me. I'm like, I'm not interested in that. You know, if you are, great, that's fine. But I'm not interested. Why do I need some scientific evidence to prove what I already know about myself? I don't. I don't get those feelings, those need, urge, or want for sex. I just don't get it. I can kiss a guy and I enjoy the kissing, but there's no urge to have sex with that guy. It just doesn't exist for me. And that's how I know I'm a genuine asexual person. I'm not someone abstaining. I'm not someone who, although I've had trauma, I'm not someone who has had that trauma affect me and not be able to have sex. I would have sex if I wanted it. My last lot of sex I had was good experience, not bad. Because people think, oh, you've had bad sex, that's why you're asexual. It's like, no, it's got nothing to do with experiences. I've had sex with 5 guys in my past. This is 2011 and prior. Haven't had sex for years. And, you know, I was in relationships with all those heterosexual guys. I thought I was heterosexual for years. And it's 5 guys, but only one was any good at doing that. Because most of them would just stick it in people. And I'm just like, this is so boring. And of course, for asexuals who do have sex and who don't experience any sexual attraction, it's going to be boring because there's nothing to keep us going, you know? So if you're an asexual person who's not really into sex, like, it's not that exciting for you. But, you know, some people can like the sensations. I felt everything when I was doing that. You know, some asexuals don't have the sensations. They don't have the feelings when they're doing it. They have like an out of body experience that's like it's not really them. And I think that's more traumatic personally, that if you're kind of having an experience where you're not really there in the moment with your body and your mind, but you're still doing it. I kind of feel that's quite difficult because it's like disassociating yourself, which I don't know if that's an automatic response or something you're doing because you find the act traumatic because you don't really want to do it. So I don't believe any asexual should have sex if they don't want to. I don't think you should just do it to please a partner. I think if you're just negotiating times to have sex with your partner, but you don't actually want to do it and it's more of a chore and you're resenting that person, I don't think you should be having sex with them. I think you should find someone that's more compatible with you. Personally, that's my personal opinion. Because, if you aren't actually enjoying it in any way, shape, or form, you don't like the sensation, you're not having good feelings about it, then I would say, why are you doing it? Just to please someone is not good. It means you're people pleasing. Yes, you might want to please your partner, but it's not good or healthy for you. It can feel like damaging to your soul and can feel like self-abuse. So I would say, some people are just not compatible. You have to understand that some heterosexuals and asexuals are not compatible, and we have to accept that fact. I wish that more heterosexuals would not want sex, but they have their own needs and we have our own needs. So there are a lot of asexuals and sexuals that are not compatible. The ones that are asexuals who are more on the sexual end of the spectrum, so the more grey asexuals, they experience sexual attraction, but only under limited rare or specific circumstances, or experiencing not enough to want to act on it. Those asexuals are more likely to be able to be okay to have sex because they have an inkling of what sexual attraction feels like, or they do experience it, but it might be quite dulled down. But they have a kind of feeling and sensation that they can relate to heterosexuals, for example. It can be any sexual, bisexual, pansexual, homosexual. They can understand the feeling, right? But if you're a sex repulsed asexual and you hate all types of sex, which I do these days, I never really was bothered about it in the first place, but I did some types of sex in years ago, then, for me, I don't want sex anymore, and it's not like I don't know what I'm doing because I've got experience in that, but I just don't want to do that anymore. It doesn't excite me. I actually find kissing with my clothes on much more exciting. I like kissing with clothes on. I personally feel that someone with clothes on, guys can only attract to guys that's much more beautiful than the naked body. I'm not into the naked body. I like clothes on a guy. I'm like, oh my God, you just look so gorgeous in your clothes. I have clothes attraction. It's a very strong attraction for me. Clothes attraction, certain clothes on a guy, like street clothes. I'm like, oh my God, I just want to snog you. Usually foreign guys, Indian particularly, if they wear street clothes and they're Indian as well, I'm like, oh, aesthetically you look beautiful in your face and you're wearing street clothes. So just is the look together with the aesthetics is just like that makes me feel like aroused, but not to want to have sex with them, just to want to kiss them. Right? My excitement's in kissing. I think when you are new to asexuality, your asexual journey is a journey of discovery of your own body, of yourself, of what you like, what you don't like in a relationship, because you take sex out of the equation. If you're an asexual not interested in sex, it helps you to focus more on yourself, on your feelings and your emotions, and you can hone down a lot more on how your body's reacting and responding to different things, or at least that's the way I've experienced it. So since 2014, I've come to understand that I do have high levels of arousal, but zero sexual attraction. That was a revelation to me. I thought I was heterosexual for years of my life. I didn't realize arousal was a completely separate thing to sexual attraction. I just presumed as I was kissing and I was getting aroused, that meant that I was sexually attracted to someone, but it's not. Because when I found out I was asexual, I asked myself, have you ever, Sandra, thought, oh, I want to have sex with that guy, any of your ex-boyfriends or anyone? I'm like, no. I'm like, well, that's the difference then. If you experience sexual attraction, you'd be looking at one of your exes when you were with them or whenever, or someone, and you'd be thinking, oh, I want sex with that person now, but you don't think that way ever. So if you don't think that way ever, then you're not experiencing sexual attraction. You might have a feeling in your genitalia that feels like, like tingly and ooh, like this. And that's okay. It doesn't make you not asexual. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you like want sex. It's just a feeling and sensation in your body that doesn't have to be linked to anyone or anything. But for me, it's usually linked to kissing, thinking about kissing, doing kissing, right? But I don't feel that way about sex. So if a guy was impotent or couldn't have sex for a physical reason, and that was permanent, but he still loved kissing loads, that would suit me quite well because I'm not interested. I don't need his genitalia to get excited. I just need kissing. But yeah, so I am a hyper kisser, which is very difficult as an asexual person, because as I was saying earlier, most people who are asexual, I find, don't want much kissing. I'm attracted to guys, and there tends to be more female asexuals than male asexuals. And also, there tends to be less romantic asexuals than romantic asexuals. And so when I'm interested in guys and I'm really romantic, there's less of a pool of asexual people that's going to be suitable for me because of those two things. And then add to the fact that I like younger guys, and I prefer really foreign guys to British guys. There's not that many foreign guys on the asexual dating apps. And the ones that are, I think the majority of them like to not be with someone who's an older girl. It makes me laugh because I'm like, really older girl. I just like, I don't relate to that at all, because it's like I don't know anyone my own birth certificate age really who goes out clubbing like I do and does the same sort of things as I do, go watch kids movies and things like that. But there's probably maybe a few in the world, but I don't think there's many of us. And it just makes me laugh because I find the guys that like older women, they expect an older woman to behave a certain way. And I'm like, yeah, it's not who I am, mate. You know? It's like I'm not the perfect type of girl that wants to cook and clean for a guy and be a domesticated goddess. I'm the opposite of that. I literally live like a student. Like, you know what I mean? That's why I can relate to younger guys. And I reprogrammed mine to be like 21 years ago. So I'm quite happy with that. My teenager lifestyle, I love it. If I don't live that way, I feel miserable. You know, some younger guys are just too old for me. They're just too old in their souls. But I think I would suit being with an older soul, in the sense that if a guy was 23, for example, but he was mature, I think that would be a good thing. Like if he knew the type of girl he wanted, if he's happy to be seen with an older asexual girl. Usually guys that are like that are heterosexual though. They're not actually asexual. So that makes me a bit stuck, right? It's like that I be with a heterosexual or no one. But I'd rather be with no one than with the wrong guy, you know? And there's years ahead of our lives where, you know, the more we come out about being asexual, the more we talk about being asexual, the more asexuals we come across, the more likely we are to have a chance of meeting the right person for us. But I often find something I feel and think really sadly about is that I find that a lot of asexuals that I come across, they're not driven so much as I am to actually find someone for a lifelong, serious, committed, loving, caring relationship. I find a lot of asexuals, because sex is not involved, they're not bothered one way or the other if they have a relationship or not. And that's not a good attitude to have if you are looking for a relationship. So if asexuals are on dating sites, it's like, why are you on a dating site unless you actually want to be in a relationship? Why are you even in dating groups unless you seriously want to be in a relationship and date? I know dating and relationships two different things, and you don't have to be in a relationship to date, right? But me personally, like if I'm getting into a relationship, I want something serious, because otherwise it's not worth my while. It's not worth my time. I don't want casual relationships. I don't want short term. People get hurt during those, and it's just a waste of my friggin' time. You know, I don't want to spend all my time getting to know someone just for them to say, oh, I'm leaving the country in 3 months. I'm like really not interested in that. You know, there was a guy who connected with me through Facebook dating, because I've just been back on there again. Because someone was asking me on Facebook dating, like, how do you see just people who's liked you as a friend? Well, when you go to your likes on Facebook dating, if you've got Facebook dating, it's only available on the phone Facebook dating, not on a desktop, not on a laptop. So you need to go to a heart button on Facebook if you've got one of those. You then can see your likes once you've filled in your profile, make sure it's public, and put what type of person you're looking for. You then click on your likes, and when you go to the likes, it'll have a section in the top nowadays, which is like a little round thing that says all. So if this person, you know, photograph is underneath, it says all, and there's a little arrow. You click on the arrow, and then it can show you you change it to just friendship likes or dating likes. And that's how you can see if you've got people who like you as just a friend or people who like you as a dating scenario. I don't think I've got any matches at the moment to show you, because I could show you because I'm back on Facebook dating again. But I don't, I've got to be careful of people's confidentiality as well. A guy waves at you A guy waves at you, harassment. I don't feel harassed if a guy waves at me. So, different asexuals can take things different ways. Like I'm an asexual that doesn't mind being called hot. I don't mind being called sexy. I I will kiss guys in clubs if I want to because I'm a hyper kisser. I don't have a problem with that if I want to. I feel comfortable enough. But there are some asexuals that would never go clubbing. A lot of asexuals would never go clubbing because there's obviously a lot of sexual energy. There's a lot of heterosexuals there. And years ago, I was scared of doing stuff like that because I didn't have boundaries in place. Now, because I'm very confident, because I was like, a guy can't touch me in certain places. If he tries to put his hands out, I move them and say, no, don't touch me there. Right? Because I have boundaries in place. That makes me feel safer going into clubs full of heterosexual guys because I tell them where they can and can't touch, basically, if they start putting their, but there are some people who feel harassed by heterosexuals. I mean, obviously you could get harassed in the sense you might have a heterosexual pursuing you and you may not be comfortable with that. They might start flirting with you, pursuing you for a relationship, that type of thing. And it's even more annoying if you've already got a partner. I know there's one person who's married who's asexual, and she gets people coming to her who are like chatting her up and things, and she doesn't like it and she feels harassed. So there are people who feel like that who are asexual. I don't have a problem with the way heterosexuals behave. That's probably because I've been in heterosexual relationships for about half of my life or more. I date heterosexual guys sometimes still, these days, because I'm not scared of dating heterosexuals like I used to be, because I got boundaries in place. I know myself so well, and I'm like, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want the other. We're not doing this, we're not doing that. I'll only do this things. And if they try to overstep that, I'll tell them no, right? And I can always leave. And I don't have them coming around to my home. It's all done in public. If they won't see me in public, that's it. If they won't video call me first, that's it. I'm not interested. I'm just not interested. So I think if you're dating from an asexual point of view, you're thinking about getting into a relationship, you want to be on the dating scene, you've got to understand your own body, what you want, what you need, what you like, what you dislike. Are you hearing this, men? Question mark. So you've got to basically know exactly what you want and what your boundaries are. Like, what are you prepared to accept from guys? Obviously, in a club, there are situations where you're squashed with your backside against someone else's. In busy clubs, that's what happens all the time. It could be any gender. Someone who's attracted to you or not attracted to you. It happens. I've got used to it. My mindset is 21 anyway. I'm quite used to that type of thing, right? It's not particularly present having someone's backside up your own, but especially like when you're even people you're not attracted to, but you kind of get used to it, but you can adjust yourself somewhat. But if you're really squashed, there's nowhere else to move. You either literally move through a crowd and walk somewhere else, completely out of that situation, or you kind of stuck there for a little while until someone else moves, right? Sometimes it just stay in the same place dancing. And if someone's pushing into me all the time, it's like, I'm not moving, they can move. Why should I move when I was there first and they just come crowd around me? Any slight bit of sexual energy is seen as harassment. That's why it's super dangerous to even be near an asexual person. I avoid them at all costs just for safety. Oh, so you're not asexual? Well, I end up mixing with heterosexuals all the time at clubs, although the club I go to, that I love going to, Timepiece in my city in Exeter, that's LGBT plus friendly. There's gay guys snogging on the floor. There's lesbians snogging on the floor, the dance floor. So it's not just for heterosexuals that, you get different types of sexuality snogging on the dance floor. So, but a lot of asexuals do not like sexual energy, and they would not be in a bunch full of heterosexual people. For example, I am happy to be there the majority of the time. There's very rare instances where things get out of hand. Like, I've been pushed into a table before, not because I'm asexual, because I didn't know that. It's been that crowded. I had my legs smashed into a metal table, which I still got. Like my knee is, sometimes you can see a little lump there. It's when it's in a certain position. So yeah. And but yeah, I don't, if you are highly heterosexual, you love sex, there's no reason for you to purposely be near an asexual person. Because, if you want sex and an asexual person doesn't at all, then why be near them anyway? It's just wasting each other's time. But obviously in a club, you might be near them because you don't know what sexuality they are. And a lot of people aren't out about it being asexual because they live in fear of ridicule. 1 in 100 people or more is asexual. So 1 in 100 people you're likely to meet, it's 1% of the population. So basically that's equivalent to 1 in 100. That was a survey that was done years ago. Right? But it might be more than that because a lot of people aren't out about being asexual. So if it's 1% of the population, 1 person in every 100 you come across will be asexual, usually, on average. Right? And you could have an asexual parent, an asexual family member, an asexual cousin, an asexual brother or sister. Teacher could be asexual. This is why we need more awareness about asexuality. Because there's loads of asexuals around the globe who live among you. Most who live in silent, you don't even know they're asexual. Not purposely, just the fact that I'm near someone in a normal sense. Says 2 more years till Western civilization collapses. Very interesting name that you have in chat. Jonathan, don't forget platonic attraction exists. Yeah, I don't experience platonic attraction whatsoever. So I'm an asexual person who experiences no platonic attraction, which is very rare, but doesn't exist for me. Platonic attraction, me personally, doesn't exist. I don't experience any platonic attraction whatsoever. 0 diddly squat, which causes a lot of issues for me. I'm a hyper-romantic asexual, and I'm writing Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual book, which is taking you behind the scenes of my hyper-romantic mind. It gets crazy in there, people, crazy. I want to make that a short book, so it'll probably be out probably before the Asexual Guide to Sex book comes out. And you might be thinking, why has she got an Asexual Guide to Sex? Because an asexual who has had sex in the past, and some asexuals do want to try it or are having it anyway. So there is some people who are asexual that want to try it, that are doing it, or want help to try that. So that's not a book saying you should have sex if you're asexual. Don't have it if you don't want it. But there are a proportion of asexuals that do want it, do have it, and they don't really know what they're doing. So yeah, a lot of asexuals do experience platonic attraction. I think I mentioned QPRs. Did I mention QPRs earlier? I'm not sure. So some asexuals, oh yeah, I did say that some aromantic asexuals, for example, those that lack romantic attraction, some of those do want queer platonic relationships, QPRs. So as I don't experience platonic attraction, it isn't my strongest forte of knowledge. But what I understand from the aromantic asexuals I speak to, a queer platonic relationship is more than just a friendship. And it's such a deep emotional bond and like a bestest ever friendship, but it's more than just an ordinary friendship. So someone in a queer platonic relationship, for example, may share a bed with each other, but they wouldn't do that otherwise. Some of them may cuddle, but they wouldn't do that with just their friends, or they wouldn't be in a bed cuddling their friends, that type of thing. It's born of platonic attraction rather than romantic attraction. Even if I'm not attracted to someone, the fact that I just so happen to be next to an asexual person with 0 intentions of doing anything, they still can falsely accuse me for not doing anything. Well, I don't know if that's proven. If you're sat next to an asexual person, I'm speaking to someone in chat now, and you're speaking to someone who's not talked to you before, how are you even going to know they're asexual? You're not. Do you know what I mean? You can't know if someone's asexual. So you said the fact that I just so happened to be next to an asexual person with 0 intention of doing anything. How can they falsely accuse you of doing something if you don't do anything? You can't be accused of doing something if you don't do anything. Do you know what I mean? And you're not even going to know that person's asexual unless they've told you. So I don't see how you can know that. Jonathan, I experience queer platonic attraction. Oh, sorry, not queer platonic attraction. I experience platonic attraction, says Jonathan, mostly to women, N/NB only. Only last week I realised this is likely connected to my own gender identity. So yeah. So 2 more years says, oh, you're in the UK. It's different here in the US. They can falsely accuse men for anything. Yes, I'm in the UK, United Kingdom. I like being in the UK. I love being in the UK. A lot of people are like, why don't you like traveling? I'm like, because I've got everything I want in the UK. The only place I like traveling is to Disneyland Paris by Eurostar. I don't fly on a plane and I don't feel I'm missing out. I don't feel like I need to fly to Hong Kong or Australia or USA or any other places. I'm quite happy to be in the UK. Right. I just thought I'd throw that in there. But yes. And that's another problem with dating. A lot of the guys I come across, they love traveling and I'm not into traveling. Although obviously if I become a speaker, I'll be traveling in the UK. I've said I don't want speaking gigs abroad. I just want them in the UK or online speaking gigs because I think online would be better considering my health needs because it's a nightmare traveling with fibro and anxiety as well. Like it causes a lot of excessive stress. So yeah, but who knows what will happen in the future. But at the moment, I don't fly on a plane. I haven't done that for years. I'm scared. I had flown twice. It wasn't a good experience. So yes. Yes. Anyway, I need some more water. So anyway, yeah. So going back to asexuality, some asexuals feel happy with physical touch, but they don't actually feel happy doing full sexual intercourse or full sex. You can get some heterosexuals, for example, who are not asexual, but they're penetration repulsed. I just thought you should know that there are some people who aren't asexual, but they're penetration repulsed. They don't like penile vaginal sex, basically, but they still experience sexual attraction to other sexual stuff. They're not the same as being asexual and not experiencing sexual attraction. Some people come to me and they're like, oh, I haven't had sex for 9 months. I'm asexual. And it's like, just because you haven't had sex for 9 months doesn't make you asexual. If you experience sexual attraction, but you've been too busy with your career to have sex, the opportunity hasn't arisen, maybe you do need to get to know someone more before having sex, all these type of reasons why you're not having sex, that's not the same as being asexual. Asexuality is a sexual orientation. It's not a lifestyle. It's not a choice. It's not I haven't had sex for like a year, so I must be asexual. It's like none of those things. So you have to understand that asexuality is a sexual orientation in which you lack sexual attraction to, lack the need, urge, or want for partner sexual intercourse. And so why are great asexuals part of the asexual spectrum when they do experience sexual attraction in some way? Under specific circumstances, under limited circumstances, or they experience it, but not enough to want to act on it. Like, how does that work? Well, lack can have two meanings. Lack can mean you don't have enough of something, and lack can mean you don't have any of it. So if you lack complete asexual, sorry, I'll change what I say. I was going to say if you lack complete asexual attraction. What I meant to say was if you completely lack sexual attraction, right, you'd be a pure asexual. If you don't experience any sexual attraction whatsoever, you lack all sexual attraction, you'd be a pure asexual, right? And you have a lack of it, as in complete lack of it, you don't have any of it. But you can have a lack of it, as in just not enough of it. And that's where the asexual, grey asexual people come in. So grey asexuals experience a lack of sexual attraction because they don't have enough of it to be classed as a full sexual attraction, to be classed as a sexual person. They lack the usual sexual attraction, and pure asexuals lack all sexual attraction. They're both lacking in sexual attraction. Because on Avon, asexuality.org, they changed the definition of asexuality to be little to no sexual attraction, right? Instead of having the words lack of sexual attraction. But the words lack of sexual attraction still covers pure asexuals and grey asexuals anyway. They seem to think it didn't, but it does. And that's why, because of what I just told you, lack has two meanings. You can lack something as in completely absent of it, or you can lack it as in not have enough of it. The pure asexuals lack it completely. The grey asexuals lack it as in not having enough of it. That's how they're both lacking in sexual attraction. I put this in my Asexual Guide to Sex book, by the way, which I've still got the final edits to do, but I had to leave it for a little bit while I did my talk and prepared for my talk at Oxford University for Boo Talks this week, in which I talked about asexuality. So yes, I just wanted you to know that it doesn't matter where you fall on the asexual spectrum, you can still lack sexual attraction. Obviously, it's difficult because there is a sexual end of the asexual spectrum as well as a pure asexual end of the asexual spectrum. So the ones that are more on the more sexual end of the asexual spectrum, they can vary in all their needs. So a grey asexual could experience sexual attraction, but not enough to want to act on it. Or you could have a grey asexual who experiences sexual attraction, but only under limited specific circumstances. So that's two different types of grey asexual. One that they don't have a strong enough need or desire for sex. And so even though they experience it, they've just got a little bit of it, but it's not enough. It's not enough bigger urge. And then you could have a grey asexual who does experience sexual attraction under limited circumstances. That could be full sexual attraction. Like, I really, like, I've met this person and they happen to look this certain way, and I happen to have this deep bond with them, and everything's fallen into place, and it's exactly like all the elements I need for sexual attraction. So therefore I want to have sex with them. I want to do that quite a bit with them, like a regular sexual person would. And then you can have the other type of person, like I just said, who doesn't experience enough to want to act on it. These people both call themselves grey asexuals, but they're both completely different in their sexuality. So this is why asexuality gets so confusing for people. They're like, hang on, if you really enjoy sex and really like it, why are you calling yourself asexual? But these people usually aren't pure asexuals. They're on the grey asexual part of the asexual spectrum. And it's in limited, rare, specific circumstances only. So the majority of the time, they're not feeling that for everyone or anyone else. They only have it maybe for a handful of people in their whole life. And so it gets very confusing. Someone who's a sex repulsed asexual like me, and then I see someone who's asexual saying, oh, but I enjoy sex. That is difficult for me to hear, because I'm thinking, hang on a minute, you're not a pure asexual, you probably, which usually they aren't, right? And it is difficult. It's like, how does the outside world understand asexuality if an asexual just enjoys sex as much as anyone else? Like, it's hard for someone to understand the difference, right? But the difference is in the sexual attraction. Like, how does it happen? When does it happen? And is there a lack of sexual attraction there? Usually, is it the norm for that person not to experience sexual attraction to the majority of people, the majority of the time? And it might be very rare that they experience it, So you have to think of all these things and take them into consideration. And you've got a whole host of sub-identities under the grey sexual spectrum. And asexuality is not the same as gender. So I have some people, and they think that I'm talking about gender when I'm talking about asexuality. It's like, no, you can be any gender and be asexual. You could be gender fluid, you could be male, female, trans, non-binary, and loads of other genders. You know what I mean? Like, any type of gender. It's not gender bound, which some people seem to think it is. And I've even been to like a business meeting a few years ago, and I was talking to them about asexuals and how I help asexuals on this channel, etc. And they're like, oh, there's a lot more talk these days about gender identity, isn't there? And I'm like, it's not to do with my gender, it's a sexual orientation. I am female. I was, born female, cis female, sign female at birth, whichever of the three terms you prefer to use. And I'm asexual, but you can have asexual guys, you can have trans asexuals, non-binary asexuals, gender fluid. You can have whatever gender and they still be asexual. It's got nothing to do with your gender. So I just find it weird. Although usually in surveys on asexuality.org, I see about 10% of asexuals are non-binary usually. So there tends to be quite a lot of non-binary or trans people in the asexual community from what I've seen. There's quite a larger percentage, I think, than probably in some minority groups, but I don't know because I don't compare those. But it's very interesting that happens. There's also quite a lot of asexuals that are autistic, but some people make the mistake of thinking that every person who's autistic is asexual, and that's not true. That's not true. I've known guys who are autistic, but they're heterosexual and they love sex. So do not make the mistake of thinking that every person who's autistic is automatically asexual. They're not. Jonathan, gender does very much complicate things. I realise my attraction is actually gender envy, most likely. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I don't think I've known of gender envy until you spoke about it recently in another chat. You know, I mean, there are asexuals that are pan romantics that I know you're not romantic, Jonathan, but I know there are asexuals that are pan romantics. They're attracted to multiple genders. Their gender doesn't really matter to them. So yeah, but I'm specifically only attracted to guys. I don't get attracted to women. Most of my friends are guys as well, the majority of them. And any females that I've had as friends, the majority of those have had like a more masculine side to them. So if I'm going to be friends with a female, usually she's got more of a masculine energy, a masculine side to her, masculine traits, the majority of the time. I'd be interested to know if I've actually ever liked a girl who hasn't got some masculine traits that I don't feel, you know? So yeah, I can usually tell the majority of the time. So it's very interesting about what people talk about. I've never been a girl who's into talking about let's paint our nails. Oh, we're gonna have them a pretty pink, you know, and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my god, it's so boring. Talking about makeup and nails and stuff like that, it's really not who I am. You might notice that usually I don't wear makeup. I did to the talk, Blue Talks as a speaker, but the majority of the time I don't wear makeup. Jonathan, that's the same with me, but the other way around. My guy friends need feminine traits. Oh, it's really interesting. So I'm attracted to guys who have some feminine traits, but I like them to still look like a guy. So I have friends that are cross dressers, for example. I cannot be attracted to them when they are dressed in female clothing, look like a woman, and have loads of makeup on them. I just not attracted to them like that. I can be attracted to them when they're presenting as a guy, if they're assigned male at birth, but I can't be attracted to them as a female. They wear more makeup than I do, and because I barely ever wear makeup. It's like, oh my lord. And they wear more seductive clothing than I would wear as well. It's quite interesting. So the feminine traits that I like in guys, that I value for me personally, because I'm not talking about the way a guy looks, I'm talking about the way a guy is if he writes poetry for me. Absolutely adore that. I think it's really nice. It's kind of a soft, gentle. Obviously, if he's writing about death in poems, that does put me off him. I'm like, this is harsh stuff. Death. Because I knew a guy who was demisexual, Indian guy. He used to be in my group years ago and on my pages. And he wrote poems, but it's all about death. And it was like so morbid. And I just couldn't stand it. I'm like, please. I didn't want him to send me poems. It was just too depressing. So, you know, someone who writes a love poem to me, for example, saying your smile makes me feel like life is worthwhile. This type of thing. Your rosy cheeks are music to my ears, and you make my life complete. This type of thing. I like poetry myself. I do, or I used to do ad-libbed poetry on my Quirky Books TV channel. I haven't done that for some time, but I do like doing ad-libbed poetry now and again. So I love poetry. But yeah, so a guy who writes me love letters, something like that. A guy who doesn't mind doing housework. I hate housework. Who likes doing cleaning and cooking, that type of thing. I love that because I hate that. So it really balances me out. Like, oh, I love one of my best friend. He likes cleaning. So and he helps me because I've got disabilities, you know, fibromyalgia. So he helps me do cleaning in my flat, or does it for me sometimes, should I say, rather than helps me. He does some cleaning for me and gets some shopping for me, food shopping and stuff. I think it's amazing like that. And he's, you know, he's happy to do that type of thing. So yeah, he's amazing. He's a really good guy. So I appreciate him a lot, you know, not just him doing that for me, but him as a person. But it's nice he does that type of thing for me. So in terms of like a relationship, in some ways I'll be better suited to a guy who's got some more feminine traits and who likes doing housework and cooking and cleaning, who doesn't see that as a chore, who actually enjoys that. Because I don't really want to be with a guy who'd be like, oh, I don't want to do that and resent me for it. But when someone actually likes doing that for you and they feel good when they've done that and they feel helpful, that makes me feel so good, you know? So I like that type of thing. But if a guy has not got a backbone, he cannot stick up to other people, he cannot have boundaries with women, then I don't like it. So I need a guy who's very strong in his boundaries with other people, like not into letting other women touch him and stuff and kiss him and things like that. He's very like just with Sandra in a relationship. I haven't found that guy yet, but someone who's very boundary driven with other people, doesn't like people like, I know there's some asexuals who love cuddling their friends, for example, but for me that is completely out of the question. I'm fine with hugging friends, but there's a difference between hugging and cuddling, right? I couldn't be with a guy in a relationship who'd go around cuddling his friends. It just wouldn't be good. Hugging is like when you hug someone to say hello and goodbye. Cuddling is when you put your arms around them and you're like, like holding them for a prolonged period of time, bring them into your body and having cuddles and stuff like that. I personally don't agree with that, because that is reserved for a romantic relationship. So I need to find a guy who I could trust in that way and who would naturally be like that, So, I like a guy who's very strong, because some of the feminine guys that I come across, they can't say no to their mums. They do whatever their mum tells them to do, which I think is really bad. It's like their mum's another girlfriend. And they can't say no to other people. Oh, but I didn't want to hurt her feelings. I can't possibly say no. It's like, but she kissed you. Oh yeah, but I can't be horrible and say no. It's like, for God's sake, have a backbone and boundaries, I don't like that type of guy. To me, that is not a suitable guy for me. So I like someone who's kind, caring, sympathetic, empathetic, but who understands that not all women are good. There are quite a lot of women that have ulterior motives. There are quite a lot of women, in my own experience from my past, who look like they're really sweet and innocent, but they're really not. They have affairs with guys. Usually the guy is in a relationship and they're having sex with him behind the guy's partner's back. I don't know how women can do that. It's something I would never ever do in my life. And all the women that I've known who've done that, you'd look at them and you wouldn't think they'd be that type of person at all, that type of woman. They're not overtly sexual. They're not like making it known as such that they want sex with guys and stuff like that. Some of them are kind of like housewifey type girls, And I'm like, you really serious? And they don't feel guilty at all about having sex with guys who are in other relationships. I personally find that damn right disgusting, and I don't like it, and I hate it, and I think it's totally bang out of order. I think if you're going to do that, you're just, well, you're destroying relationships, and it's just no good. I don't know how you could be with a guy who does that type of thing. So it's a really big no-no for me. I don't like affairs. But obviously, like, when someone gets cheated on by a guy, they're like, oh, this guy cheated on me, which is terrible. But you have to understand, for every guy that's cheated on you, if they're into women, then usually it's a woman who's cheated with them on you. So another person, not just the guy, but another woman's responsible for cheating as well. But obviously, the guy's in a relationship with you, so they're the one who's cheated on you. But you got to understand there's more than one person involved in the cheating. And all the women I knew, they were actually, I think, single at the time. As far as I know, all of them were single. I think one of them might not have been, actually. I think they were playing the field, but maybe the majority of them were single, but the person they were having sex with wasn't. I just think that's disgusting. So I know that women aren't that sweet and innocent. I know there's a lot of women who deceive and lie. I've had that in my past as well. I used to be bullied by women as a child, much more than guys ever did. And so I don't really relate to women that much. There are some nice women, obviously. Not everyone's horrible. There's some nice entrepreneur women. Blue Talks, for example, the majority of the people are women. So that's really different for me. I'm in groups of women. And I wanted that experience as well, for me to be able to bond more with other females. But a lot of them are in their masculine energy because they're business women, they're entrepreneurs, they're authors, they're speakers. So they're in their masculine energy. So I can relate to them and get on well with them. Do you know what I mean? Jonathan, the idea of cheating irks me, and I'm not even a romantic, just a fundamental lack of honesty and respect. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jonathan. It is, and it's hard because most of the guys on Badoo and Facebook dating, they'll cheat on people. That's why I stopped using Facebook dating, because I was just getting liars all the time. I've even had a guy tonight going, oh, we want the same things. It's like, interesting. He's like, why is it interesting? I'm like, because it says in your profile about traveling. I don't even like traveling. Plus, you're not even speaking to me. I'm the one who's doing the long messages, not you. So it would indicate that we're not even suitable. I just like, it's a waste of time. I don't know why people like wasting so much time. It is completely dishonest and disrespectful, but it seems like people don't even get that concept these days. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if you can't be in a relationship, don't be in a relationship. If you need to play the field and you can't actually commit, don't be in a relationship. I want to find a guy who takes more pride in being a serious, committed relationship and who sees the advantages and benefits of that rather than playing the field and having short term excitement where they have like a one night stand. A guy who's mature for his age, he doesn't have to be older or old. A guy who's mature for his age will understand that there's a lot of beauty and growth in a serious, committed relationship that he's not going to get in just a fling or a one night stand. And a guy who's very mature will want to take the responsibility on of being dedicated and faithful to one person because he'll realize there's a lot more benefits in that. You can grow together as people, and that's what makes a healthy relationship, not just coming home and watching TV and chill out on the sofa together where there's not any real communication going on. That's not actually a healthy relationship. It's just vegging out in front of the TV together, which you could do with anyone or anything. An actual healthy relationship is where you talk to each other and you actually wanting to grow as individuals and grow as people together, and you're spending quality time together, taking an active interest in each other, switching off the TV, switching off your phones for a time, speaking to each other, and maybe you're taking courses together or complementary courses, and you're coming back and you're educating each other, and it's about growing together. That's what healthy relationships is about, not stagnating and dying. But there's few and far between people that I come across on dating sites. To be honest, dating apps aren't the best place to find quality people for a relationship. But even when I'm going to meetup.coms, a lot of the guys I'm meeting through there, yeah, they're fun to hang out with, but they're not suitable for a relationship. And the ones that probably would be more suitable don't want relationships anyway. But there's a lot of guys who, for example, they haven't understood that they have trauma in their past that they need to get therapy to help them to overcome. And they've been in past relationships that haven't worked out, and they haven't reflected on why they've not worked out and want to do something about it to be able to be a better person for another person in a relationship. They'd rather avoid. There's a lot of avoidance on the dating scene and on dating apps. They'd rather avoid difficult conversations completely. They'd rather avoid talking about their feelings and emotions. They'd rather avoid talking about deep conversations, and talking about deep conversations, having deep conversations, talking about difficult and deep conversational things. So it's kind of hard. It's better really if you can meet someone in person, but it's highly unlikely you're going to meet the right asexual person for you at a social setting. We're more likely to find someone online really as an asexual person, in terms of if it's an asexual dating site or asexual dating app, because most of the things I want, it seems like a lot of asexual guys don't want. Then for me, I've got more chance of finding it sometimes amongst heterosexual guys, but then if they want sex, I haven't. So I might be single forever, and that's not a bad thing. It means I can focus on my career and do other things. Jonathan, for me, I love deep philosophical conversations. That's really important. I think it's good you like deep conversations, and that they're philosophical. It's important. I need intelligence as well. So I talk a lot about kissing on this channel, for me personally, not for people who don't like kissing. And some people might think, oh, she just wants a load of kissing, but I would actually be bored if that was all I was doing in an actual relationship, because I need intellectual stimulation. I couldn't just be kissing the whole time and not have some guy talking to me intellectually about different things. I would actually get bored. I wouldn't get bored of the kissing as such. I get bored of that being the only thing that we have in common, and the relationship's not really growing or going anywhere. It'd be boring. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I have to have an intelligent guy, someone who's empathetic, someone I can speak to about anything and everything, the world, planet, and universe. Someone has kind of a sexy side to him, but doesn't need sex. I don't know how to describe that. I think I've got some sexy side to me, but I don't need sex, and I'm asexual. I don't mind being sexy in some ways, but I don't want sex. And I like to keep my clothes on. A lot of these things don't really go together, but it is what I am, you know. And I think as an asexual person, you have to accept yourself as who you are, even though you might not completely fit into a tight asexual box. Because a lot of the time we don't fit into a tight asexual box. We have nuances, we have things that are not exactly like everyone else. We have things that are different, you know, they're slanted differently, they feel different to us. For example, I'm sensual, but only with the guy's upper body from the waist upwards. You know, whereas a lot of people that are sensual, they're like all over the body. You know, some people like massagers. I can't stand massagers. And you might think because I'm a sensual person in that way, the guy's upper body, I want massagers or, you know, to give him a massage. I don't mind sometimes giving him a massage actually, but I'm not really into being massaged. Jonathan can relate. I love people with provocative clothing styles. For them, that might be sexual, but for me, it's aesthetic. Ah, that's very interesting. Yeah, I love street clothes. I love street clothes so much. I mentioned this earlier. Like, you know, like out of street dance movies. God, I love that look. Like, so when a guy like wears jeans and he has like a nice like top on that's tight to his chest, and I'm getting more used to muscles than I used to be. I don't like muscles in general on guys apart from on their arms, like their body. It makes me think they're like an armadillo, and I don't want to cuddle them because they seem too hard and harsh if they're muscly. But because of the guys I'm meeting in clubs these days, a lot of them have got some muscles. I'm kind of getting a bit more used to it. But in general, I like skinny guys these days. But they don't have to be skinny. If I met an Indian guy, for example, who wasn't skinny, I would still like him. I'd find him cuddly. Put my head on his cuddly bits. I better watch what I say with cuddly bits. I'm talking about the waist up. I'm not talking about the waist down. Oh my god. But yeah, so you know, I would like an Indian guy, like even if he's not skinny, right? If he's the right Indian guy for me. Whenever I talk about Indian guys, I just get a beaming smile on my face and can't speak as well as I would usually would because I get a bit like gooey eyed over Indian guys. They're really my thing, Indian guys, to be honest. But I am talking to more British guys on dating apps lately in their 20s. I'm kind of trying to give that a go, but it's still not the same as talking to an Indian guy. And I think, well, how can you ever get into a relationship with a British guy again, Sandra? Because really, you want an Indian guy. You're not going to be satisfied unless you have an Indian guy. You just know it. And I'm like, and I'm kind of trying to ignore myself really on that and trying to like see if I would be suited to a British guy, seeing as my long-term relationships have been with British guys. But it's not really the truth, is it? My truth is I like Indian guys. That's my truth. But there we go. So I think you have to live your truth as well as like experimenting if you want, as long as people don't get hurt. But it's not that I'm not. Oh, it's not that I'm never attracted to British guys. I can be attracted to some British guys. I found one guy that I was really attracted to on. Well, he found me on Badoo. But it's weird on Badoo. He's all of a sudden got another profile on there with some different pictures, but one that's the same as before. And he's liked me again. I'm thinking, what's the point in liking me when you already told me before we're not suitable because you need sex and I don't want it? I don't get that because I've kept exactly the same profile. I thought I blocked his other profile. Yeah, I did because I remember talking about it on here. I said that I had to block him because I was on my phone and I couldn't just delete his profile from my stream of being, you know, the people I was talking to. So I had to physically block him. So he must have created another profile. But on that, he said he smokes occasionally. I didn't think he said that on the other one. So he must have a second. He's either got a second profile already that I didn't know about, which is dodgy as F anyway, or he's created this other profile to like more women for some reason. Maybe some people blocked him before. I don't know. It's weird. Because I thought, oh, he's a nice, good looking guy. I recognize the name, I recognize the age, and then I saw a picture. I'm like, that is the exact same guy. It's the same picture that's on his other profile. Just he's got some other ones that are different. And it was a guy I had a video date with, a British guy. Weird. And I'm thinking, why have you liked me again when I've already blocked you before? It's not like he came in my inbox and they actually said, hey, it's me. I'm really sorry because I do like you after all. Something like this. He just hasn't even spoke to me on there, but liked me again. I'm like, just, do you not recognize it's me? Or are you just going through those women? Because on Badoo, it says swipe 50 people to find your match. It actually tells you on Badoo dating app to swipe 50 people. What swipe means is basically they mean swipe right, which means swipe, choose 50 people to talk to in your inbox. Swipe them, as in put them in your inbox, put them as a match, put them as a like, basically. And then you've got a chance of finding the one you love, because the right person for you, because you've put 50 people in your inbox. In other words, they're treating you like a number, and they just shove you in a box, and you haven't even seen the person's bio. It's just by their face. I don't know why they think that's going to be helpful. Swipe 50 times. Like, what? Why is 50 a magic number, right? And usually the guys I get from that ones who want kids, because they haven't, of course, read my bio. Some that are already in relationships and it's complicated. Some that smoke and it's like, I don't want a smoker. A lot which have got beards, and I specifically say I don't want a beard because they haven't read my bio. They've just been swiping, thinking she's got a nice face, which is nice. I'm glad they think I've got a nice face, and they think, oh, I like her, so I'll just swipe right for her because I like her face. But they're doing that with 50 plus people, right? So it's not really that I'm anything special. It's just the fact that they're swiping for 50 people. And I am absolutely shocked. I'm like, do you really think you're going to find your love of your life just by swiping 50 people? I mean, yes, it's a numbers game, dating. I get that. Like sales is a numbers game. The more people you get into the store, the more likely you are to have a sale. I do understand that philosophy, but do you know what I mean? I'm asexual. They've got a category for asexuality on there, for asexuals, I should say. But you can't filter by asexuals. So you can say you're asexual and sexual orientation. I've only come across 8 people, 8 guys, because I'm not interested in women, on the asexual spectrum so far. And they, apart from 2 of them, they were all on the grey asexual end of the spectrum and could have sex or wanted it. And the 2 guys that I found, one was in my city. He approached me as soon as I was on there, full beard and smoked, so no good for me, even though he's foreign. And the other guy was like smoked as well. I think he might have had a beard as well. I'm not sure, but they were no good. Dating apps commonly treat you like a number. Your value is given an ELO score, like in chess. Well, I have a high, like I've been given Badu Premium now, free. I don't know if I've told you that. I announced it on my Asexuality asexual dating channel. I have separate this, but I'm on this channel most of the time. But I've been given Badu Premium now for free. I think they got so fed up with me being on there. And actually, they said it was a reward. So I haven't got Badu Premium Plus. I've got Badu Premium Free, which means every time a guy likes me now, I can see my likes all the time, which is helpful. I like to see who's liked me, but it's not helpful in the sense that nearly everyone who's liked me is not suitable for me. But yeah, but with Badu, the more you use it, the more people notice you. But I've got it for life. They've given me Badu Premium for life. Whereas usually you have to pay, is it $119.95 for life? I don't know if that's bad. I think that's Badu Premium. But you can get Badu Premium Plus as well. So, which gives you other features that I don't have. But I'm like, oh wow, Badu Premium. Okay, I'll just have Badu Premium. But some of the time I was thinking about not using the app for a while, and then they give me Badu Premium, and oh my god, I guess I'm using it more now. But it's like, it's very difficult. You can't filter to look for asexuals. You can only filter by every different type of sexuality, but your asexuality. But yeah, they have a category for asexuals on there. I mean, this is just ridiculous. I don't know if I can show you any of Badu or Facebook dating while I'm on here, because I'm looking down at my phone now. Because I've just started using Facebook dating again. I'm not sure if I've had any likes. Because obviously when they find out you don't want sex, then you don't really get likes as such. So, all right, there's a guy who, right, yeah, I'm definitely getting rid of him. So this guy who I said that's interesting, because this guy, right, said to me on Facebook dating, so what is it you're looking for? I know you said on your profile, but just asking personal, right, with a kiss. So I spent ages writing this message out to him, right? And clearly he's not interested because he barely speaks back to me. I'm looking for what I say in my bio, but I did expand a lot. So a younger guy, my preference is usually for foreign guys, but my longest relationships have been with British guys who can live without sex forever in a monogamous live partnership. Someone who doesn't need kids or marriage, and who would eventually move to live near me, but not with me, as I live in very unconventional lifestyle. Should be as I live in very unconventional lifestyle. It's not probably grammatically correct, but never mind. I usually sleep 4 a.m. to midday, and I feel happier living on my own, paying my own food and bills, and being in control of my own life and environment. I don't watch TV. I do not want to cook, clean, or do housework for a guy, and that hurts me and doesn't make me happy, so he must do this for himself. I'm looking for a guy who's very open and honest and is happy to talk about anything and everything with me, and nothing is off limits. A guy who had his shit together and who enjoys working on himself to develop and grow himself to being a better human being, and who wants to develop and grow in the relationship with me as a team, who is intelligent, an active listener, super romantic and kissing affectionate with clothes on my boundaries respected, including in public on social media with me, and who doesn't care what people think at all, who is proud to be with an older asexual girl, who knows his own mind, is steadfast and strong, supportive and understanding and empathetic, and who had strong boundaries in place with other women. So I know I can trust him, and he prioritizes long-term commitment over short-term excitement, who enjoys going clubbing, sometimes with me and on dates to theme parks, zoos, aquariums, who is strong in heart and mind. The only reply he gave me to that, which took me ages to write out, was, I sound like the guy for you, which is clearly manipulative. It's like, you don't even know me. I've only just met you, and you're talking a load of bollocks, excuse my language, because any guy who doesn't know you, who says that they sound like the ideal person for you, is just talking a load of rubbish, right? So I said, how so? And he's like, because we want similar things. So I said, interesting. He's like, why is that interesting? I said, well, you haven't told me anything about yourself, and you're not asexual. You like traveling abroad, and I don't. Messages are long. Yours aren't. It's a sign we don't want the same things, if you say so. So clearly, this guy's a really bad guy for me, because those simple words, if you say so, is, how can I put it, a bit narcissistic. It's like trying to say that, it's trying to like question your reality. Do you know what I mean? Because if he was interested in talking to me, he'd be like, oh, I'm really sorry. I can see your point of view. You've written me long messages. I haven't written much to you. It's not the way I usually behave. So let's start over, and I'll explain more about myself and what I'm looking for. But he hasn't done that. So clearly this guy is not a good guy for me personally. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm saying he's not a good guy or the suitable guy for me. Right? Because if you say so, it's very sarcastic as well. It's like sarcastic, questioning my own reality and judgment. It's like a backhanded compliment, which is a narcissist. I'm not saying this guy is a narcissist, but it's just something a narcissist might say or do, right? The way he's phrased that, if you say so. It's basically trying to make me not trust my own judgment by getting me to question my own self and what I say by using those words, right? To make me doubt myself rather than him actually being nice. So he'll be off there soon. I'll be blocking him soon, but I might say something on my other channel about that. So I don't know. I can't do the likes because I haven't got any likes now, because because obviously I don't get as many likes because I put don't like sex on there. But basically, when you go into likes, you can't see it because obviously I haven't got it. But you can. This is like where the locations are. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if you can see that, right? So where it says Exeter, Devon, when you've got likes in that place where it says Exeter, Devon, it will come up likes. It will come up like saying all on there. And there's a little arrow. See, that's the arrow for the location in this case. But when it comes up with actual likes, you can click on the arrow and it will have a list come up as like dating likes or friendship likes, and then you just want to tick which boxes you want to see, whether you want to see your friendship likes or dating likes, basically. So yeah. But these people are like, oh, it's an exact match. It's like, I don't think so. So on Facebook dating, it's like really weird. You can't see what it doesn't even say what sexuality they are on Facebook dating. Like, you can't even tell, right? So you can tell if they don't want. It says doesn't have children. Doesn't mean to say they don't want children just because they don't have children. So Badoo's better in terms of like finding out what person likes and doesn't like. But you have different options on Facebook dating, so you can see the pictures of them. Some of them have their Instagram linked to Facebook dating and stuff like this. But with Facebook dating as well, see, you can browse someone's Instagram posts. You can make new friends. So that's how you make new friends, through that. And then you can discover through interests, which is really good. So obviously I like Bollywood dancing. That helps me to find Indian guys who also like Bollywood dancing. They're not necessarily all near me where they live. And you can give someone a second look. Or add someone you're interested in as a secret crush. This means like you could add someone who's your Facebook friend who you've got a crush on to see if they're on Facebook dating, basically. But Facebook dating is the heart. Can you see that heart up there? So if you haven't got the heart on your phone, you know, when you go to Facebook and you go to the like menu, it often comes either up on the top on a phone, or if you go to like your actual profile, sometimes it can go down the left hand side, but you can't see this on a desktop. It's only on the phone. It's weird, but there we go. But yeah, so on Badoo they have different things. I don't know if I can show you Badoo quickly on here, but I do have premium now for free, which I am glad about. But on Badoo, look, swipe 50 times to get a match. I don't think it's gone off now, but anyway, you can look up filters. So this is my filters. I changed the age to a bit later and a bit younger. So it's got 19 to 34, but I did have age, I think it's 20 to 28 on there, I think it was. Something like that. Or 20 to 32. I prefer like guys in their 20s really, but yeah, you can't filter by sexuality. So not for asexuality. So let me show you. So this is the filter settings on Badoo. But if you go to sexuality, look, they've got straight, open-minded, bisexual, or gay, lesbian. They do not have a filter for finding someone else who's asexual. But yet when you join Badoo, you can say you're asexual. It makes no friggin' sense why you can't do it. Probably because there's not many asexuals on there, I'm guessing. So yeah, it's like, well, I'm not interested in bisexuals. Oh, sorry, not interested in gay or lesbians. Bisexuals I could possibly be interested in, because obviously if they like women as well as guys, that's fine. But yeah, so you can just filter, and you know, I do mind if they smoke. So you know, and you can filter by non-smokers and stuff like this. So their filters are really good on Badoo, where you don't have those on Facebook dating. But I think with being asexual, it's a lot harder to find someone for a suitable relationship, because asexuals don't usually like the same type or amount of touching as a heterosexual, unless you're on the much more sexual end of the asexual spectrum, really. Of course, there are people who will compromise, who will negotiate their boundaries, who will negotiate what the touching is. But if you're someone who's very sex repulsed, like I am these days, for example, and you've got someone who really loves sex, needs it, and wants it, that's an incompatibility. And instead of wasting your time on the wrong person, even if you really like the person, you need to move on and move forward to someone you can be in a relationship with, or just be single for a while, maybe forever. It's better to be single forever than with the wrong person in a unhealthy and unhappy relationship. And a relationship can become unhealthy if it's a mismatch of needs, because if neither person is getting their needs matched, it's not healthy for either of you, regardless of what sexual orientation you are anyway. So just remember that it's important that you understand that you have needs. Everyone in a relationship has needs, and it's if you can get those matched happily with each other, you know? This even applies to friendships as well. You know, you have to make sure that your needs don't have to be identical or the same. They have to be compatible. You know, some people have different needs. Like like sometimes you can get two people with different personality types that do suit each other. Like, although I'm extrovert, I do suit probably either an introvert person or ambivert. If I was with another extrovert, it might not work because they might be too extrovert for me, or we might clash in terms of like our personalities, or in terms of wanting attention and stuff, if that makes sense. And sometimes like a noisy person, loud person might suit a more quiet person, because the quiet person might like the fact that a noisier person injects some spark and life and vibrancy into their life. And the louder person, the noisier person, might like a quiet person who makes them feel more peaceful and calm. So they both balance each other out. So, you might find like there might possibly be someone in the world, for example, who's heterosexual, who really loves kissing more than sex, and they get all their pleasure much more from kissing. There might be a heterosexual guy like that somewhere in the world, and he's like, oh, I'm really not so bothered about sex, but I have to have kissing. I can't live without kissing, And that guy might be suitable for me, if he's not that bothered about sex, but it's like, really, I have to have kissing. And that's what I need. And although we're two different sexual orientations, we might have that commonality, because I do have to have physical affection. I do have to have a lot of kissing, holding hands, that type of thing, just with my clothes on. And there might be a guy that, for example, there might be a heterosexual guy that was in a relationship with someone else previously, and they're like, oh, the woman, she didn't even like, maybe he did have sex with a woman, but there's like, oh no, I need the touching, I need the kissing, I need the cuddling, I need the hugging, I need, I need to feel like I'm intimate with a person in public. I need to feel like I'm close to them. I need to have this physical bond with them. I didn't really feel that. Yes, I had sex, but it was just a bit boring, or wasn't really that great, because I didn't have all the other elements. I much rather prefer to have the elements of physical touch and physical intimacy than the sex itself. There might be that type of guy that's out there for me somewhere over the rainbow. But anyway, so I think there's someone for everyone. I think, sometimes we can look at our nuances and think, oh, they're such a bad thing, or it's going to be really difficult to get someone for a relationship. If someone doesn't love your nuances, if someone doesn't compliment them, if someone doesn't love you for who you are, it's much better to be without someone else and just be by yourself and self-date and enjoy your own life, than end up being with someone who wasn't right for you or isn't right for you. Jonathan, I was just thinking in that exact song, or Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I mean, the minute you said someone, oh, that's really good. I said someone, did I? Someone over the rainbow, did I? Or when I said someone? I can't even remember what I said now. My throat's getting a little bit sore. I think I think my mind's going a little bit loopy now. I think I need some food. I get low blood sugar and I need to eat regularly every couple of hours. I've been streaming now for over 2 hours, so I guess it's probably my cue to leave for very soon and go and get some more food. But yes, thank you for joining me on this wonderful ACE Awareness Week, or ACE Week it's called nowadays. I really appreciate you being here. Is there any questions anyone's got in chat before I go, just in case there's something that needs to be covered that isn't being covered or hasn't been? When it comes to like thinking like will you ever find the one for a relationship if you're really romantic like I am, we just can't actually tell if we specifically are going to find the one or a one for a relationship. We just have to know that whether we find the right person for a relationship or we don't, we're still a whole person as we are. We're still valid. We can still have amazing friends. We can still have amazing life experiences. And there is just so much more to love and the world than sex, and there's a lot of benefits from being without sex. There's no messiness under the bed sheets unless you're pleasuring yourself, shall we say. I'm putting that in the most polite way as possible. But you don't have to worry about messy bed sheets in general, and you don't have to worry about sexually transmitted diseases or infections if you're not mixing your with someone else. And you don't have to worry about pregnancy. You don't have to worry about whether you keep the baby or not. If you do get pregnant, abortion, you don't have to worry about creeping around in weird times, weird places, trying to find places to have sex. You don't have to deal with all these things if you're an asexual person who doesn't have sex. You don't have to worry about getting yourself all ready with sexy lingerie to have sex. You don't have to worry about dressing yourself up for sex. You don't have to worry about plastering your face and makeup for sex. You don't have to worry about buying sex toys unless you like using them as a solo artist of self-pleasure life. You don't have to worry about, being at your sexual best all the time. You don't have to worry about the pressure of sex. You don't have to worry about like where the thing goes. You don't have to worry about where to put your arms and legs. You don't have to worry about like, I'd rather watch that TV program or that movie, or I'd rather be doing 55,000 other things than having sex right now. Don't have to worry about that stuff because you just don't have to have it, right? You don't need it. You don't want it. You don't have to have it. You can also sometimes, I'm not saying this exactly for me, but sometimes you can have a better view or opinion of someone if they're suitable for a relationship with you or not, if sex is not involved. In my case, my hyper-romanticism can take over sometimes. And I have the same problem as heterosexuals in the respect that they get really blinded by sexual attraction. I can get a bit blinded in some ways by romantic attraction. But the last time I kissed a guy was this Monday night, just gone. Well, it's probably more like Tuesday, actually, because I went clubbing on Monday in Oxford, but I don't think actually the guy approached me till Tuesday morning. And I was so happy because I don't miss the guy, even though I let him kiss me. He was Indian. He didn't know I liked Indian guys. He approached me. He kissed me. He held my hand. He danced with me in front of everyone. I really liked that. I did enjoy the experience. And he did ask for my number. But then when he found out through messaging that I'm asexual, don't want sex, we're going to meet up like later that day for food. And he made up some excuse not to meet me, but I'm okay because I got to spend more time with Blue Talk speakers, which I didn't realize they were going out again for another meal. So personally for me, I'd much rather do that than spend more time with a heterosexual guy who's no good for me anyway, because he's never going to speak to me or see me ever again, even though he asked for my number. Because that's the thing, when you're asexual, doesn't want sex, you kind of get this attitude sometimes that if you're not having sex, that you're not worth seeing because it's the sex they want, it's not you, right? And when he and his friend walked me back to the hotel, which I didn't let him in, I told him that I need to go by myself. I need to go into my room because I had the event again the same day later on. And he was like, oh, but I don't want to leave you. Now, bear in mind when a guy says this, he's heterosexual. He doesn't want you. He wants the sex. So what he means by I don't want to leave you, he actually means I don't want to leave you and not have sex with you. I don't want to leave empty-handed of not having had sex with you. This is what it really means, right? Guys don't tell you this. Heterosexual guys are not going to tell you this. This is the truth, right? Especially if they make up excuses not to see you the next day because they know sex is off the table. And if they don't call you again, they don't speak to you again. It's just the sex they wanted. That's the plain and simple fact. A guy who's interested, or any person who's interested, you will start a conversation with you and will maintain and sustain it. And they'll be interested in you as a person and interested in you when they can't have sex with you. They haven't got easy access to you physically. But I'm okay. Like, one of the people at the Blue Talks, because they knew that I was meant to be having this date later on, she was like, the little shit, how could he do that to you? And she was really angry for me. And I really appreciate that. Don't get me wrong, because I only met this woman speaker up there. And we weren't even Facebook friends at that point. And I thought it was really sweet of her to care so much and be so caring and empathetic. And she really was pissed off with the guy for me because she knows I'm a good person. And, they know I'm asexual because obviously my talk was on asexuality, and they think it's horrible because it like kind of stood me up, but he didn't really, because I phoned him and he just like made an excuse. Like, oh, I spoke to my parents. I haven't had a shower yet. I'm like, oh, I'll go to the restaurant by myself then. That's fine. No problem at all. Bye. Take care. And that was it. Because I knew that was the end. I did say to him, oh, it's because I'm asexual. We both want different things. He's like, no, it's not at all. Of course it is. Of course it is. If I said to him, right, I'm going to have sex with you right now, but you've got to come in the next 10 minutes, I'm sure he would have been able to make it. Right? But because I'm not saying that, then I'm not interested in sex. He knows he's not going to come and speak to me. Right? And he's not mature enough in the sense of valuing someone's worth without sex. We're different types of people anyway, because I said to him, because he asked me in messages, because he was messaging me when I got back to the hotel on my own and he'd left without sex, and he was messaging me quite a bit then. So he seemed interested in me, but obviously he probably thought when he woke up, oh, she's not interested in sex, that's it. right? But he said, like, what do you think of me? I always find it weird when a guy asks me that. It's like, well, clearly you're insecure if you think I don't like you, but I allowed you to kiss me and I allowed you to cuddle me and hold me close and do sexy dancing with me. If I didn't like you, I wouldn't have done that, would I? So that's a bit of insecurity on his part, I think. But it's like, I told him the truth. I said, I like you, but we both want different things because you don't want to stay in the UK. You want to go traveling, basically. And I looking for a guy in the UK. I told him that I am actually on dating sites looking for a serious relationship. So the conversation went that he is, that if he could find a job he liked permanently in the UK and he had a partner, then he'd stay here. But then I told him that he asked me, because I said you YouTube, he asked to see my channel, so I sent him a link to this channel, and he asked to know more about asexuality, so I did. So I don't think he was a completely bad person, I don't think a guy would have even bothered to ask these questions about me and of me if he really didn't like me at all. I think the fact that he even showed some interest and did want to ask me, he didn't even he was messaging me to gone 4 a.m. I only got I thought it was 2 hours sleep basically to the event. So he's messaging me still at 4:11. I said I've got to go to sleep, but I don't think he was I don't think he didn't have any interest in me, because I don't think he would have been saying this. But the conversation went very sexual because he told me on the way back with his friend. Oh my god, sorry, I thought I had my phone switched off on silent. So he told me when he was with his friend that, because I presumed he had women all the time, so it's really weird in the club. He said I didn't know certain people were asking me to kiss him. It's really weird. These people saying kiss him, which at that point I didn't, because I was worried, because he said he smoked sometimes and I don't usually kiss a smoker. And then he said he didn't know these people. And then when the lights gone up, he kissed me after I let him, after the lights went up. So in broad daylight, well, nightlight. And then he knew quite a lot of the people, like the security people and stuff. He goes, oh, I know these people here. They know me. And then he turns out he works at a bar up the road and a hotel. So, and the bar he works at is called The Kiss, apparently. I'm like, oh, you like kissing then? He's like, yeah. Which he knows I like anyway, because by that time he kissed me and I allowed him to do that. And so he didn't really smell of smoke, and he said he vapes sometimes. So I was worried about that, but I thought I'll probably get ill anyway, because I've had a person who was having a meal with me who was having a meal with me earlier, who was coughing next to me all the time. There's loads of vapors in the club anyway, which really affect my chest. So yeah, anyway, this is digressing, but the point is he was talking to me, and then he said that he hadn't been, because I thought he regularly did this with women, which he probably does. But he said, oh, I haven't been with a woman for 5 months. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. But then when he started messaging me, when I got back to the hotel, he said he hadn't been with, he hadn't had sex with a woman for a year. And I'm thinking, well, what happened to the person from 5 months ago then? I'm sure you had sex with them, because you probably wouldn't think it was worth it unless you had sex. So I think that was a lie, probably. But there we go. So yeah, that was the end of that. So you have to understand that if you're asexual, rejection is part of the course, especially if the person's heterosexual, that it's not your fault. If they want sex and you don't, then yes, they are going to behave like they like you a lot first. But if sex is off the table, then they'll behave like they don't want to know you, or you matter nothing to them. This is not true of every heterosexual. I'm just saying, with certain guys, for example, in clubs, this is the type of behavior, unfortunately, you can expect. I don't really get let down anymore by it. I'm so used to it that I'm just thinking, hey, I enjoyed the time. I enjoyed kissing in the moment. I enjoyed the experience. I'm never going to see this guy again. It's different if the guy lives in my city. That's a lot harder, usually, or near me. But if he's a guy far away in Oxford, it's I'm never going to see you again. I all the time was telling myself in my head, I'm never going to see this guy again. He's just kissing me in the moment. He's just enjoying the moment. And all the time I was saying, just enjoy the moment, Sandra. Realize you'll not get, after he's finished messaging you, you're never going to hear from him again. You know this. Even though you phoned him up and he did answer the phone and made up some excuse not to see you, you know that's the end of it. But it's good because I said thanks, bye, and I'll go on my own. So that was basically the end of that. And it ended well in the sense that I had closure, which you don't always get. It was a certain type of closure. And I knew that was the end because I said thanks, bye, good, So I'm getting more used to it now. Sometimes I think it's just better for me to kiss guys in clubs, go home, and then not worry about it. It's different if I've got feelings for the guy. But with this guy, I had really strong aesthetic attraction, not too much romantic attraction, even though I loved kissing him a lot. It wasn't enough romantic attraction to pine over him or worry about him. And I thought that I knew all the time I was with him, this is not going to last. He's not going to want to continue to see me. I'll be very surprised if he didn't. I was actually getting really nervous about that fact anyway, because I didn't think he was right for me. And especially when he started messaging me about sexual stuff. He messaged me about one night stand, about what he did with her, and the fact that she thought he was so good at sex and she really enjoyed it. And I'm like, well, how do you know you're going to get pregnant? He's like, because she would have said. I said, well, you don't know that, And then he was going, oh, well, I always keep a condom on me. I'm like, well, that is good. But obviously, if he's keeping that on him, it's because he's having sex regular, isn't it? Or expects he might do. So yes, you've got to understand this about heterosexual guys. I'm telling you this because if you're a romantic asexual who's looking for a relationship and you're on dating sites and you're dating heterosexual guys, or you come across them in bars, clubs, and stuff like this is a type of behavior you can expect. I'm not saying this to scare you or worry you or because I think it's acceptable, but if you accept it in the moment, don't beat yourself up about it. Just be aware that this is temporary and that you're not going to see this person again, usually because they need sex, you don't, and it's all about the sex for them usually. So if you're going to have a nice time, just enjoy yourself in the moment with this person and then try to detach from them. I'm a much better at doing this than I used to be. There's certain people that still feel some attachment to, probably, but this new guy, I'm not attached to him. So the fact that he's gone out of my life and not messaged me again, I'm happy with. I'm really happy with it. And I'm happy that I'm happy because he's an Indian guy, aesthetically hot looking, gorgeous, stunningly beautiful, short dark hair, my type of hair, beautiful smile, gorgeous eyes, thin, street clothes. Like, he's got multiple visual aesthetic qualities that I love, but still I'm not attached to him. So I'm really happy about that. It's a very big stride forward for me. Very massive stride forward. I think it did help. And this is a good technique to use in your mind, that this is not going to last forever. Enjoy this moment. This guy's probably not going to contact you again. He does want sex. And own up to that realistic thing rather than try and make him something he's not and have this, what if this happened? What if that happened? It was kind of like, I accepted that. And I'm like, okay, Sandra, like in some ways, I think it's better just for me to go to clubs, kiss guys, and then go home again, not worry about it. Because I don't have the hassle of being with the wrong guy. I don't have to worry about relationship. I don't have to worry about like seeing a guy regularly so that I can't get stuff done in my career. It might actually suit me kissing younger guys in clubs and that be it, and not looking for a relationship. I'm still on Badoo, I'm still on Facebook dating, I still say I'm interested in a relationship, but I'm looking for a relationship. But if I can't find the right guy, I'm probably just gonna have to settle. Well, I don't have to do it, but I like kissing. So that's probably gonna be like my normal every now and again, kiss guys in clubs, and that's gonna be it, really. Hand them back to their parents or whatever they want to do with their life. Oh, dearie me. Some of them still live with their parents, sadly. But a lot of the guys I meet don't, because they're like students. They've moved away from their parents, which is good. It's like you're still living at home with your parents. Not everyone who lives at home with their parents is bad. My bestest friend still lives at home with their mum. But they have very independent lives. I think if you're going to live with your parents still, you have to have independent lives. My bestest friend is never told ever what to do by their mum, ever. They go out when they want, come back late at night when they want. They do what they want when they want. So if you're going to be, I'm bestest friends with this person, not in a relationship with them, not in a romantic relationship, only of a friendship, highly amazing best friendship with them, right? But what I'm saying is, if you're going to be in a relationship with someone who lives with their parents still, you need someone who's independent from their parents, who's able to have the freedom where you can see them when you need to, be with them when you need to. You don't want them going, Mummy, can I do this? Mummy, can I do that? For their permission, like because that means that you're like 5 years old. Do you know what I mean? Because they're still acting like they're 5 years old, and it is difficult living at home with parents. So, like, because I like younger guys, I kind of have to accept a bit that they live with their parents. And when you live with your parents, you're under your own parents' roof, really. So a lot of what they say goes. It's just the way it is. You know what I mean? So I do have to give some leniency to that. But like, I couldn't be with a total mummy's boy. And a guy's like, oh, my mummy's calling, I've got to go now. I'm like, oh my gosh. And that's the difficulty of me liking the Indian guys as well, is a lot of them are very they have parents, especially mothers, that are very kind of like, I don't want to use the word controlling because maybe that's unfair, and that they just might be over loving. You know what I mean? Like, I do have respect for Indian women as well, and the mother's like the head of the household. I do respect that, but I think there are certain Indian guys where their life is ruled by their mother. And if the mother doesn't like the person they're dating or doesn't want them to be out at a certain time, or the mother wants to phone them at a specific time, they will put their girlfriend or partner or date on hold. And it's not on, really. That's too extreme. I think you need a balance of having parents that care about you, being in your life, loving you, and wanting to spend some time and talk to you and take an interest in your life, to actually like not being told what to do by your parents, though, you know. So, but I know some Indian guys, they phone their parents a lot and specifically speak to their mum. But I think it's fine to talk to their mum, but I think if you've made a date, for example, and they're like, oh, hang on, I need to phone my mum now for like 2 hours, I'm late for our date, I don't care, that's wrong. You know, they really should say to their mum, look, I'm happy to talk to your mum, but I can't do it now. I've got this, you know, I'll phone you at such and such a time or something like this. And hey, mum, can we talk in the week later, and arrange time with your mother and stuff like that, you know? I think if I've also been in groups, in Indian groups, where women literally, their husband is so listening to the mother all the time. It's like they're in a relationship with the husband and the mother, and the actual husband does do everything the mum says, even though the wife is living with them. So I know it's not just my perception. Some actual Indian women in marriages have this problem, because I am in some groups which have Indian women in that talk about some of these issues and problems. Like maybe they're cooking and cleaning and bringing up the children, but the husband is away at the mother's house, you know, having tea with the mother, and they're not taking responsibility and being an adult in the relationship because they're too busy about their mother, and too worried about their mother and doing the mother's lives. It's a very like kind of codependency, really, you know, because obviously when someone's left home and they've got a wife or a new partner, they should prioritize that wife or new partner. You know, of course you should still see your family, of course you should still see your friends, but there has to be a degree of prioritization over the person you're in a long-term relationship with. There has to be time and boundaries, like when other people can't intrude on that, you know, and that includes parents. I know I've been with a British guy who was like a mummy's boy. He was incestual with his mother, though. I mean incestual, you know what incest means. He's doing sexual, you know, that he was in the same room naked with his mother and stuff like that. So that's just disgusting. But, you know, and that's British guy, not a foreign guy at all, British born. And so, yeah, that wasn't good. It was literally like being in a relationship with him and his mother all the time. His mother was like a girlfriend to him. It was disturbing. It was horrible. And for a long time, I couldn't get out of that situation because I really loved the guy. I was quite hooked on him, and it was awful. It was just a very stressful situation. And I'm glad to be out of that. It's something I don't really talk about because that was the first long-term relationship I ever had, and it was horrible. But I stayed because of how I felt about him. In the end, the guy had an affair. So, yeah, that's how it, with a woman with a kid. So, yeah, it wasn't good. But, you know, that's the other thing. It is hard, I think, for heterosexuals to be remain faithful. So if you're in a heterosexual relationship and you're an asexual person who doesn't want sex, there is a huge likelihood that the guy is going to cheat. I don't want to say that to you to put you off and to be unfair to heterosexuals, but a large proportion of heterosexuals will cheat. They cheat on women, for example, that do have sex with them. So if they're not getting any sex at all and they've got a huge sex drive, they will usually cheat. I've had lots of guys cheat on me. I didn't know I was asexual back then. You know, if we're talking, you know, in the past, I didn't know I was asexual. I've had a lot of guys cheat on me because I'm not bothered about sex, you know. And even if when I did have sex in the past, it usually would be less than what a heterosexual guy would be normally happy with or want or need, you know. So you got to bear that in mind, you know. I'm not saying this to put you off and saying you can never ever find a heterosexual guy for you if you're asexual, because obviously there are some asexuals that are in relationships with heterosexuals. So, you know, they can be the other way around, but I think these people are few and far between. And for the majority of heterosexuals, they do need sex. And if you don't do that with them, which don't ever do that with them, if you don't want it, like it, or need it, then they will go elsewhere for it. Because eventually the urge will get the better of them. You know, unless you find someone who fundamentally values all the other things and sex last, then it's going to be hard. but there are asexuals in relationship with other asexuals. So that's why it's very important we raise awareness of asexuality. We get asexuality more well known throughout the globe, so that more asexuals come forward, and we have more chance of finding a suitable asexual person for us to be in a relationship with, especially if we're sex repulsed. Because we're sex repulsed, so we don't want sex. We need to find a compatible asexual person for us, really, who can live without sex as well. Anyway, I'm going to conclude tonight's stream. It's been a pleasure to talk to you tonight. Thank you, Jonathan. Lots of love to you. Love the convo with you. As always, you're very good at being in chat. I appreciate it. Shannon, lots of love to you. And there was someone who came in chat who's not asexual, called 2 more years till Western civilization collapses. I do not want to comment on their user handle. I don't know if I agree with that at all, but you could say maybe it is going to collapse and then rise in a different way, but I'm not getting into that. I just call them 2 more years. They're not asexual anyway. But anyway, I appreciate everyone that's been in chat tonight. Lots of love to you. Please keep raising awareness of asexuality. Please share this channel, share it with a friend. Ask people to subscribe to this channel. Subscribe if you haven't already, because there's a lot of people that watch this channel not actually subscribers. I really appreciate more subscribers, because this helps to get the algorithm working more on this channel, so more videos are shown to other people, and it raises more awareness for asexuality, because the more people that subscribe, the bigger the channel usually gets, the more eyeballs it gets on it. And if you share it with, your social media, with friends, family, whoever you feel comfortable sharing it with, then we can grow this community more, get more views and understanding for asexuality, and just live more in harmony together with the society that's sometimes very difficult for asexuals, because we are very different, and our difference is our beauty. So thumbs up if you like this video. Thank you so much for all the thumbs up already. Love you dearly. Happy Ace Week, and don't forget to subscribe, please, if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon so you always get notified of when I go live, like now, or post a new video. Lots of love. I've still got lots of footage to post from Oxford, so look out for that. They're usually shorter videos, most of them, so pre-recorded, because I didn't have enough internet up there to record everything live. So there's more photographs to come as well. That's super exciting. Woohoo! I love you. See you soon. Take care and stay ace always.